LEGO used to make minifigures like this, and now they make insane ones, like this one and this one. But what are the weirdest ones they've ever made? The first Squidward minifigure from LEGO SpongeBob SquarePants. I mean, do I really need to say it? This guy looks super weird. Obviously, we all know what Squidward's head is supposed to look like, and LEGO did make a separate headpiece for him later on. But before that, they put this guy on the shelves. Without that new headpiece, it's hard to even take him seriously, which is probably why the theme's been retired for almost 15 years. But even if the minifigure is accurate to the character, sometimes it still doesn't help, because you end up with ones like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things. Obviously, this guy's torso doesn't exactly match the one from the show, and neither do his claws, and neither does his neck, but that's not the point. The headpiece is actually made really well, and honestly, I think that takes it a step beyond weird. This minifigure is just downright scary. So good job making this headpiece, LEGO, but at the same time, you creeped all of us out. Another minifigure that's super accurate to its character, but still looks really weird, is one you might kill me for. Marge Simpson. She looks really good, and I'm not saying I don't like LEGO Simpsons, but let's be real for a minute. That hairpiece is just ridiculous. Like I said, this minifigure looks like it was made for a crossover episode. That's how good it looks. But I just can't get over how obnoxious her hairpiece is. Like, it's almost taller than her torso and head combined. The thing is, though, these three don't even scratch the surface for how weird adapted minifigures can get. Some of them use such strange parts that I'm wondering why LEGO even called them minifigures. A great example is Gollum from Lord of the Rings. Like, what's up with this guy, man? Look at him. He's perfectly gross just like he is in the movies. So good job on that, LEGO. But they didn't use one standard minifigure part for this guy. Now, I will say, LEGO Lord of the Rings has been around for a while, and this Gollum in particular is from 2012. So maybe he looks different now? Nope. No, he does not. In fact, he looks even weirder than before. His legs are chunkier and his faceplate is more gross. So yeah, on paper, he looks really good. But when you take away the Lord of the Rings tinted glasses, all you see is a gross little minifigure. If you thought something like this was only possible in Lord of the Rings though, guess again, because LEGO Star Wars does something pretty similar. Obviously, there are a bunch of weird looking minifigs in this theme, but one in particular who just does not deserve the minifigure title is Sebulba. His 1999 version has been getting clowned on LEGO YouTube for years, and it's for good reason. In the movies, he walks on his hands. So I ask you, LEGO, where are his hands? Not only does this guy look like a fake army man, but he's not even accurate to what we saw on screen. They did make a new one in 2011, which does look a lot better, but I don't know. Does this version deserve to be called a minifigure? Let me know down in the comments. Anyways, there's one last questionable minifigure like these I want to talk about. His name is Jeremy, and he's in the Yellow Submarine set for the Beatles. Now, personally, when I think of the Beatles, I think of the four main guys playing the music. So when I looked at this set and saw a weird little guy, I was really thrown off. I'm not the biggest Beatles fan, but I've never seen him anywhere, so I was really confused. But once I found out that he came from an animated movie from 1968, it started to make sense. The movie was called The Yellow Submarine, so the LEGO set isn't named after the song. It's named after this movie. And since Jeremy was in the movie, he made it into the set too. Getting back to the point though, this guy is just like Gollum and Sebulba. He looks nothing like an actual minifigure. So even though his story is interesting, he's still pretty weird. Don't think that the rest of the minifigs in this video are created equal though, because now I'm gonna show you some with those insane parts from the intro. One of the most notable ones is Hagrid from LEGO Harry Potter. In the early 2000s, the minifigures for this guy looked really strange, and they still do even in 2024. Hagrid is an English half giant, so obviously he's gonna be a pretty big guy, and you can see that clearly in the movies. So when it was time for LEGO to make his minifigure, they had to ask themselves, do we fully downsize Hagrid like we will for Brick 17 years in the future? Or do we make a new part to make him as accurate to the movie as possible? And obviously they decided to make a new part, but it was nothing like they'd ever made before. Obviously we know how a minifigure is made. Head, torso, arms, hands, legs. But for Hagrid, it was head, body, hair. That's it. His entire body was one whole piece, which is something I've only ever seen on Hagrid. It wasn't until 2018 when LEGO finally separated his body into all the right parts. But before that, they made two more that still used this giant body. While I'm talking about LEGO Harry Potter, another minifigure that looks unbelievably weird is Aunt Marge in the Privet Drive Aunt Marge's Visit set. No, dude, not the regular minifigure, the balloon that's floating on the outside of the house. This set is based on the scene from The Prisoner of Azkaban, when Aunt Marge literally turns into a balloon and floats off into the distance. LEGO physically couldn't make this set accurate if they didn't turn Marge into a balloon. So as funny as it is, it makes for one of the weirdest minifigures ever. Obviously, when LEGO wants to make a character accurate like this, sometimes that means the minifigure has to look a lot different. And another perfect example of this is Luffy from the Arlong Park set. The funny thing about LEGO Luffy is that he's normal in literally every set besides this one. For some reason, LEGO just decided that this was the set he should have super long arms in. Every picture on LEGO's website for this set looks really weird with Luffy's long arms, especially this one. They go down so far that they don't even fit in frame. Clearly, giving a minifigure arms like this is a super drastic change. So let me show you one that's so subtle, you might have to look twice just to notice it. These are minifigures of Woody and Jessie from Toy Story. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? Even when you put them next to some other minifigs, everything looks pretty normal until you realize how much taller they are than everyone else. This isn't even the craziest part though. When you turn them around, you'll see 3 stud holes on each leg, instead of the 2 that pretty much every other minifigure gets. Looking at these leg pieces literally feels like a fever dream, and Toy Story isn't even the only theme that has them. They're also in the Avatar theme. In the movies, the Na'vi are way taller than humans, and since minifigures are based on humans, it only makes sense to give them these 3-holed legs that Jessie and Woody have. Changing the legs like this definitely makes for a weird minifigure. But what happens when you change something as small as the hands? Minifigure hands have been the same pretty much forever, so you might be struggling to think of what that could even look like. Well, this piece is called a gorilla fist, and funnily enough, it doesn't actually get put in the arm like a regular minifigure hand. Instead, there's a little notch on the bottom of it that the hand is supposed to hold on to. LEGO's only used this piece 4 times, but you better believe it looked weird every single time. The first minifig to get one was Tremor from the Ultra Agents theme, and I mean, come on, man, these hands are huge. The second minifigure is one you might actually remember. Karloff from LEGO Ninjago also had these hands. The third minifigure looks even weirder though. It's the Underminer from the Incredibles theme. On top of having these giant hands, he also had small legs, so this guy's proportions are all out of whack. The fourth and final minifigure is The Thing from the Fantastic Four set that came out this year, but this one is actually weird for 2 reasons. Pretty much every weird minifigure I've shown you in this video has only been weird because LEGO was making them look how they're supposed to, but the opposite happened with The Thing. People have been asking for a big fig for this guy for a really long time, but instead, LEGO just used gorilla hands and called it a day. And honestly, there should be 2 weird minifigures in this set. Mr. Fantastic can stretch just like Luffy, so there's no reason LEGO couldn't have brought those arms from One Piece over to Fantastic Four. It's no secret that LEGO misses the mark sometimes, but this set as a whole was a swing and a miss. Anyways, getting back to the weird minifigures, literally every single one you've seen so far has been an adaptation of a character. Sorry, I just couldn't resist. There are literally so many of them. So now let me show you some that came straight from LEGO HQ. Back in 1989, LEGO made a sub-theme for the space theme called Space Police, and even though it didn't make it past that year, they made Space Police 2 in 1992 and Space Police 3 in 2009. And when they made that third one, I was big into LEGO. I got a few different minifigures that I didn't even look twice at when I was playing with them, but when I look back at them now, these things are super weird. Now, the point of the theme was police catching aliens in space, so it makes sense. But minifigures like the Squid Man, the Frenzy, and the Cranks are out of this world. And remember, none of these guys are from Star Wars or anything like that. They came straight from LEGO's head. Another theme with a similar story is Power Miners. It was only around from 2009 to 2010, but like I said before, I was obsessed with LEGO back then, so of course I had to get a few sets. The story behind this theme is that miners were digging underground to try and fight back against rock monsters, and I think you can guess what I'm gonna say here. LEGO didn't just make small ones like these though. They also made giant ones like Geolix and Tremorox. I guess technically these 2 are big figs, but still, these guys are weird even by big fig standards. Something must have been in the air back then, because these next 2 themes are from the exact same time period, and the minifigs are just as crazy. You might remember the Atlantis theme from 2010. Just like in Power Miners, people were poking around in places they had no business being. Instead, this time, they were looking for pieces of the lost city of Atlantis. What they ended up finding were warriors, guardians, and emperors who were there to protect what the divers wanted to find. But the warriors in particular are some of the craziest minifigure designs I've ever seen. You know how the Nesquik bunny is known for being cursed because of what it looks like under the mask? Well, people need to start bringing up these warrior minifigures because it's so much worse than that. This is what the Hammerhead Warrior's faceplate looks like. This literally belongs in a horror movie. Again, I paid no mind to what these guys looked like when I was a kid, but maybe I should have. They might be why I was having so many nightmares minifigures back then. Anyways, the last theme I want to show you from this time period might make you leave a hate comment, but some of the minifigures in the Legends of Chima theme just do not look normal. One in particular who especially creeps me out is Crawly the alligator. Before you kill me, I'm not hating on the design of the minifigure in general. I think it actually looks really good, but what makes this minifigure look so weird is the headpiece. When he looks at you straight on, this guy looks like he's about to do something menacing to you, and even when you take the headpiece off, he still looks like he's gonna do something menacing to you. Honestly, that's the reason a lot of minifigures made it into this video. Their headpiece is just so weird looking, and another one with the exact same problem is in the minifigure series 14 pack. In all fairness, every minifig in here was based on a monster, but out of all of them, there's really only one that weirds me out. The fly. I don't know what it is, but something about a fly's head on a minifigure's body just doesn't sit right with me. Like, there's literally nothing human about this headpiece at all. It's 100% fly. Just like the Demogorgon, this thing is really weird to look at. So I guess I have to congratulate LEGO for being able to creep me out so well. It's not just minifigures though. Even their accessories are super weird. Like the plumbers from CMF Series 9, because he comes with a toilet plunger. But here's the thing. LEGO had to make an entirely new mold just for this accessory, which is so much work for them. All of this effort went into making sure a minifigure could hold a toilet plunger. But speaking of using accessories in weird ways, let me take you back to 1999 when the Phantom Menace sets for LEGO Star Wars first came out. The Gasgano Pod Racer minifigure needed to be built, and if you've seen the movie, you know Gasgano has these really long alien arms that are way longer than human arms. So LEGO looked at their parts catalog and had to figure out how to represent this, and apparently someone looked at the chainsaw piece and thought it would work, so they used them to build Gasgano's extra limbs. And the crazy part is that it actually does work. The chainsaws look pretty good as alien arms, but these aren't even close to the weirdest arms in LEGO, because just one look at the minifigures from the Friends theme completely changes my mind. Now, obviously these aren't traditional minifigures, but they can actually be taken apart like regular ones, and this is where the fun begins. The size of the connection point of a Friends arm is the perfect size to fit into where the hands go on a traditional minifigure. So you end up with this minifigure with super cursed arms, and all you had to do was mix and match different figures. But now, let me show you one of the funniest accessories LEGO's ever made. The Series 25 film noir detective came out in 2024, and the entire minifigure is grayscale to match the aesthetic. Everything is monochrome until you look at his accessory, and it's a bright red fish, a literal red herring. Now, this next thing isn't technically an accessory, but I can't talk about Series 25 without mentioning the Afghan Hound. This is one of the funniest looking dog breeds in the world, so I love that LEGO made their own version. The dog even comes with a groomer with a pair of scissors, and considering what this dog looks like, she's definitely gonna need them. This next accessory, though, is actually for a big fig instead of a minifigure, but in my opinion, that just makes it even weirder. Literally every big fig has these giant fists that are barely compatible with anything LEGO makes. But did you know they made an Infinity Gauntlet for Thanos that actually fits over this giant fist? The piece has actually been retired since 2023, but during its 5-year shelf life, it was only in 6 sets, so it was pretty hard to come by. And most of the time, it didn't come with all of the Infinity Stones. So a lot of fans try to collect them all so they can have a real Infinity Gauntlet. But this isn't even the only version of this thing. Remember in Avengers Endgame when the Avengers made their own Infinity Gauntlet called the Nano Gauntlet? Well, LEGO made this one too, and it's in the Hulk helicopter drop set from 2023. This one actually comes with a good amount of Infinity Stones, so most people buy this set to complete their collection. But if you think accessories for big figs are weird, Series 19 from 2019 has something that seems physically impossible. One of the minifigures in that series came with a full mountain bike. It was 100% brick built, and honestly looks pretty cool. The funniest part is that it had to fit inside the same small blind bag as the minifigure itself. A lot of people like to feel the bags before they buy them so they know what's inside. And if you did that with this one, you'd literally know instantly because of all the extra parts. But speaking of Series 19, that same series had the Shower Guy minifigure, one of the funniest minifigures ever made. He comes with a rubber duck, which makes sense sense for a shower theme. But this wasn't just any rubber duck. LEGO made a completely new green color variant specifically for this minifigure. The rubber duck mold already existed in yellow, but apparently the shower guy needed a green one. But here's where it gets even weirder. He also comes with a paper towel piece, and it just goes right over his waist. It also has rubber ducks printed all over it, just to add to the effect. It's like everything they did for this guy was one big joke. But the weirdest new color variant in Series 19 isn't the duck, it's the chicken. The Fox Costume Girl minifigure is designed to look like someone dressed up as a fox, and the idea is that she got caught stealing a chicken from a farm, so she needed to come with a chicken accessory. Now, LEGO already had chicken pieces in other colors, so they could have just used one of those, but instead they made a new tan colored chicken just for this one minifigure. This one isn't really a weird accessory, but it's definitely a weird decision. But now, let me talk about an accessory that accidentally started an entire trend at LEGO. Back in 2015, Series 13 brought us the Hot Dog Man, which was the very first food costume minifigure LEGO had ever made. At the time, it seemed like just a weird one-off character, but apparently it was so popular that LEGO just kept making more food people. After Hot Dog Man, we got Banana Guy in Series 16, then Corn Cob Guy showed up in Series 17, then Pizza Guy came in Series 19, and then Watermelon Dude in the LEGO Movie 2 sets. One mold for a hot dog costume spawned almost a decade of minifigures wearing food suits, and they're still going. There are probably more food costume minifigures being designed right now. And speaking of food, the Series 11 Pretzel Girl from 2013 needs to be mentioned. She comes with a giant pretzel that's literally bigger than her head. If you scale it to real-world proportions, this pretzel would be like 2 feet wide. I'm not sure why LEGO decided the pretzel needed to be so big, but apparently she needed a pretzel you could see from across the world. But if you thought food was weird, just wait until you see this next accessory. The Clumsy Guy minifigure comes with a brand new pair of crutches that LEGO designed specifically for this character. And he really needed them, because LEGO went all out making him look injured. He has a cast printed on one leg, a black eye on his face, and a bandage wrapped around his head. I mean, he looks like that one guy from SpongeBob. But speaking of medical accessories, LEGO also made a wearable cast piece that actually fits onto a minifigure's arm. It's a physical separate piece that you attach to the arm. So if you want to have an entire hospital full of injured minifigures for some reason, LEGO has made everything you need to do that. Now, the Series 15 Animal Control Officer from 2016 comes with a skunk, and LEGO designed a completely new skunk mold just for this one minifigure. But the funny part is that the officer also comes with a capture net so he can catch it. This has got to be the only time a minifigure's gotten this accessory. It's such a weird one. But you can find weird accessories outside of any CMF series. Moving over to the Harry Potter theme, the Mandrake plant is legitimately one of the weirdest accessories LEGO's ever made. It's a screaming magical plant that unfortunately can't be pulled out of its pot by minifigures, but it showed up in the Astronomy Tower set from 2020. In the Harry Potter universe, mandrakes scream when you pull them out of soil, and their screams can kill you if you're not wearing earmuffs. So LEGO had to design a plant that looks like it's screaming, and they did. The mold actually has a little face screaming on it. I think the best part though is the fact that you can actually pull it out of the pot. I mean, that's just perfect. But if you want to see something really specific, LEGO made a minifigure scale arcade game cabinet, and it's not just one piece. It's made out of 2 separate pieces that connect together. Now, obviously this thing is way too big for a minifigure to hold, but that's not why LEGO made it. They made it so the minifigures could play video games on it. This is an insane concept that I can't believe actually exists. But speaking of super specific accessories, there's a mechanical powerlifter arm with a flexible rubber piece attached to it. This was made for a LEGO powerlifter minifigure concept, and it's not just a solid plastic arm. It has an actual molded rubber tube that's flexible. This piece ended up going on the M-Tron powerlifter in CMF Series 26, which is pretty crazy because the M-Tron theme ended in like 1991, and this CMF pack came out in 2024. But anyways, let me show you something that's weirdly dark for a kid's toy. LEGO made a barbed wire coil that minifigures can hold in their hands. And this isn't barbed wire as a fence piece that you build into a set. It's a literal coil of barbed wire made to be carried around by a minifigure. This is definitely one of the weirder accessories in this video. But moving back to lighter stuff, did you know that there's a single molded balloon dog piece in LEGO's catalog? This thing came out back in 2018, and since then it's been in 13 different sets. So clearly LEGO uses it a lot. The first time we ever saw it though was in CMF Series 18, when they released the Party Clown minifigure. This series in general is full of weird accessories. There's a mouse, a guy with a race car around his waist. I mean, it's all over the place. So the balloon animal honestly fits right in. But this trend of minifigures with weird stuff around their entire bodies didn't end here, because LEGO also made a train conductor minifigure who literally sits in a train. This one was in CMF Series 25, and it came out in 2023, so it was pretty recent. This piece is super similar to the 3D printed train we got even more recently than this minifigure. Imagine if it was ready for production for Series 25. We would have gotten a minifigure sitting inside a 3D printed train, which would have been the weirdest thing ever. But the Build a Minifigure Halloween 2025 wave had what Jay's Brick blog called the funniest accessory in the entire lineup. This drop only had 4 minifigures, one of which was a black cat. But the Ghost minifigure came with this ghost accessory that's literally just a ghost's face printed on a splat piece. It can be held either by the thing on the back or by its side because it's the size of a tile piece. But unfortunately, none of this ghostly stuff glows in the dark. But one of my personal favorite accessories is the holographic Princess Leia statue. This piece is only in the Obi-Wan's Hut set from 2020, and even though it isn't held by a minifigure in this set, this piece is a nano figure, and those were made to be held by full-size minifigures. In the set, this piece is there to represent her message from R2-D2, which is a really cool use for the piece. And speaking of Star Wars accessories that are technically full characters, Rada the Hutt from 2008 is officially listed as a minifigure in the database, but he functions as a carried accessory. In the Clone Wars TV show, Anakin literally carries him around in a backpack, but unfortunately, LEGO just made it so he could be handheld instead. Rada is made from 3 sand green pieces with printed yellow eyes, and he only ever appeared in 2 sets from 2008 before disappearing forever. He wasn't that big of a plot point in the Clone Wars, so I guess it makes sense. But to end this video, let me show you an accessory that perfectly captures a specific moment in cultural history. When the LEGO Ninjago movie came out, they released a series of collectible minifigures based on the characters, and the Jay Walker minifigure comes with a selfie stick. Yes, a literal selfie stick accessory. Back when these minifigs came out, selfie sticks were a huge trend, so I guess LEGO thought Jay from Ninjago needed one too. You can find loads of them in the Quickie Mart. There are Power Sauce bars that Homer ate to climb Mount Murderhorn, Jebediah Springfield's wanted poster, and a bunch of others. But if you go to the refrigerator in the back of the store, there's a person inside who's completely frozen solid, named Jasper Beardley. Now, if you've seen Lisa the Simpson in season 8, you know exactly what this is. Jasper decides he wants to be cryogenically frozen, and Apu turns him into a convenience store attraction that he names Frostilicus. In the show, people literally come to the Quickie Mart just so they can see an old man frozen in a freezer. So in the set, he was kind of hiding in the back. And speaking of hidden things, the Office set from 2022 has references to Season 3, Episode 19, The Negotiation. And if you've seen it, you know this is when Dwight reveals that he's been hiding weapons all over the office for self-defense. Swords, throwing stars, daggers, even a blow dart gun, just stashed in random spots throughout the whole place. The reveal is completely absurd because everyone's been working in an office surrounded by hidden weapons for years, but LEGO actually built this into their set. There's a sword wedged between Jim's and Dwight's desks in the exact way Dwight would hide it. But that same office set has something even deeper that almost nobody would ever catch. There's a sticker in the build that recreates a real takeout menu from Terry's Diner. Now, here's why this matters. Terry's Diner is an actual restaurant in Moosic, Pennsylvania, which is right next to Scranton, where The Office takes place. During the show's production, the restaurant offered their real menu to the producers, and it ended up being a background prop in several episodes. So LEGO took that menu, turned it into a sticker, and put it in the set, making it one of the deepest references in any LEGO set ever made. However, the Seinfeld set is absolutely loaded with references to the show, but LEGO decided to include one of the most embarrassing ones ever. One of the stickers recreates George Costanza's semi-naked photo from season 8, episode 5, called The Package. In that episode, George goes to the doctor and ends up taking a photo while he's barely dressed. Then the photo gets misfiled into someone else's medical records, and it spirals into George being accused of running an adult content ring because the photo keeps showing up in different people's files. It's one of the most humiliating things he goes through in the show, and LEGO somehow decided it'd be a good fit for their set. But there's a very low-key tribute hiding on Jerry's fridge that most people would walk right past. Mixed in with all the magnets, photos, and random stuff, there's a tiny portrait of Larry David. Now, Larry co-created Seinfeld with Jerry and wrote the majority of the show's episodes, but he himself was never in any of them during the show's original run. So LEGO put his face on the fridge as this subtle tribute to one of the guys who made the show possible. And one more Seinfeld reference that's super specific: the minifigure for Elaine Bennis comes with an accessory of a goldfish in a bag. This comes from an episode when she tries to transport a goldfish on the subway. It's the kind of extremely specific prop that only hardcore fans would recognize. But moving over to Friends, the Central Perk set from 2019 is relatively small compared to the other TV-themed sets that LEGO's made. It's mostly just the inside of the coffee shop with the couch and counter. But there's a poster on the wall that advertises Joey's infamous Japanese lipstick commercial. In the show, Joey films this ad that airs in Japan, and he shows it to Chandler to show him that he has range as an actor. It's a pretty deep reference for such a compact build. But the much bigger Friends set, The Apartments from 2021, has a reference that used actual engineering, which makes it super sick. Joey and Chandler's matching recliners don't just look like recliners, they actually recline. LEGO built a working mechanism into both chairs, so you can physically recline them. Obviously, Joey and Chandler love these chairs more than anything, so their minifigures probably would have been really sad if they couldn't sit in them the right way. But another cool reference is the door to Joey and Chandler's apartment, because it has the iconic Magna Doodle hanging on it. In Friends, there was a different message or drawing on that board in basically every single episode since it showed up. It was barely ever the center of attention, but LEGO included 3 different stickers for the board, and all 3 of them are based on real messages that actually showed up in different episodes. But there's also a movie poster in the apartment that has a subtle change most people wouldn't catch. In the actual show, there's a poster that says Les Mystères de New York in French, and it's in Joey and Chandler's apartment. But in the LEGO set, the poster says Les Mystères de Billund. New York got swapped out for Billund, which is where LEGO's headquarters have been since the company started. But let's move on to the Stranger Things Upside Down set, because there's actually something in this set that I missed in my video about this theme. In that video, I talked about how Will the Wise's hat was being stored in the attic. But on the other side, you can actually find Bob Newby's camera, the guy that Joyce dated in season 2. This is the same giant camcorder that he let Jonathan use on Halloween, so it's a pretty subtle reference. But the One Piece theme is full of subtle references like this. In the Baratier set, there are paintings inside Zeph's private quarters on the ship, and these paintings reference his past life as Red Leg Zeph, a pirate who sailed the seas before he opened the restaurant. Designer Isaac Snyder confirmed this directly in official interviews, But here's what makes this so interesting. Zeph's backstory as a pirate is essential to his relationship with Sanji in the One Piece story, but it's never directly shown in the Netflix show that these sets are based on. So LEGO pulled from the original story to include details about Zeph's past, because they knew how important it was. They did this same thing again though, because the staff entrance door at the back of the ship has a sticker of Sanji's personal Jolly Roger. That's his pirate flag from the original story, not the Netflix show. These personal Jolly Rogers don't mean all that much in the original story, but so far in the live action, they haven't been shown at all. But the absolute deepest One Piece reference is hiding on a wall in the Arlong Park set. There's a room in this set that's full of a bunch of maps, and you just assume that they're all based on One Piece, but one of them actually isn't. This one is taken directly from the classic LEGO Pirates theme from back in the day. Arlong's version is split across 2 pieces of paper, but it's definitely the map from LEGO Pirates. But now, let's take a look at the Sesame Street set, because it's absolutely packed with Easter eggs. Let me start with one that has multiple layers to it. Big Bird's nest in this set has his teddy bear Radar sitting on it. Now, on the surface, that's just Big Bird's stuffed animal. But here's the thing that makes it deeper. Radar was specifically named by Big Bird's puppeteer Carol Spinney as a tribute to Walter Radar O'Reilly from MASH, a sitcom from the 70s. So the Sesame Street set is secretly referencing a different TV show in a different genre. It's like a Russian doll. But the beloved Count Von Count didn't make it into this set as a physical minifigure, which disappointed some fans who wanted the whole cast. So the designers put a giant portrait of him above Cookie Monster's TV, and it's genuinely massive compared to the size of the room. So even though he couldn't be here as a minifigure, it's obvious that LEGO didn't forget about him. But Cookie Monster's room also has a sticker of his alter ego, Alistair Cookie, on the wall. Alistair Cookie was the pipe-smoking host of Monster Piece theater segments that started airing in 1978. The character had a pipe as part of his sophisticated persona, but in the late 1980s, the pipe got removed entirely because of pressure from parents who didn't want smoking in kids' shows. LEGO included the Alistair Cookie sticker anyway, as a callback to the original version of the character. But moving over to Bert and Ernie's room, there's a small representation of Bert's bottle cap collection sitting on one of the shelves. Now, if you've watched Sesame Street, you know that Bert is obsessed with collecting bottle caps and paper clips. It's been one of his defining character traits since the start of the show. He gets genuinely excited about adding new ones to his collection. But if you go to the bathroom, you'll find Ernie's Rubber Duck. This is the toy behind the song Rubber Ducky, which is one of the most iconic songs in the entire history of children's television. It debuted in season 1 of Sesame Street, and somehow it became such a hit that it reached number 16 on the Billboard Hot 100 in 1970. A song about a rubber duck in a bathtub made the actual pop music charts, so of course LEGO had to include it. But over in Elmo's room, his pet goldfish Dorothy is swimming in her bowl. Dorothy first appeared in Elmo's World segments starting in 1998, and has been his companion ever since. But starting in season 47, she only shows up in animated form on the actual shows. She's not a puppet anymore. So her physical LEGO appearance is technically the most recent real version of Dorothy that exists. And Elmo's bedroom also has a tiny toy train sitting on the floor that might just look like a generic train at first. But designer Ollie Gregory specifically confirmed in the official behind-the-scenes video that the train was built to resemble a vintage LEGO set from years ago. He said it was based on an old set that's a personal favorite of his, and I'm not sure if it's set 396, 181, or a different one. But there's also a small alien UFO on the outside of the set. This is a reference to the Yip Yip Martians, these alien characters who first showed up in 1972. Their whole thing was that they'd come down to Earth and be absolutely terrified of normal everyday objects, like telephones, clocks, and radios, and their little spaceship is there to reference them. But now, let me show you one of the most creative ways to use a LEGO piece that I've ever seen. The Wednesday Addams set came out in 2024, and the designers needed to give Wednesday her iconic black skirt with that specific shape. They looked through LEGO's parts catalog and found the nose cone piece from the Concorde set. So they took it, made it black, added a custom pattern to it, and turned it into Wednesday's skirt. This was the first time that Concorde nose piece had ever been used in any set, besides the Concorde itself. But moving on to the modular police station set from 2020, designer Chris McVie confirmed in the designer video that a currently airing TV show is referenced somewhere in the build. He couldn't say which show for licensing reasons, but multiple reviews found blue and yellow mason jars as a reference to Brooklyn Nine-Nine. There's a really famous cold open in that show where Hitchcock and Scully have matching blue and yellow mason jars. And even though LEGO can't officially confirm it's Brooklyn Nine-Nine by name, it's pretty much confirmed that that's what it is. Now, the Big Bang Theory set has a really specific reference hiding in Sheldon and Leonard's apartment. There's a tiny red micro figure sitting on top of the bookshelf that reviewers identified as the Flash. This references Sheldon's obsession with the Flash throughout the entire run of the show. He talks about the Flash constantly, argues about the Flash, wears Flash t-shirts, so there's no way it could be anyone else. But there's a detail on a certain minifigure in the Nightmare Before Christmas set that you can't see unless you literally take the minifigure apart. That minifigure is Sandy Claus, which is what they call Santa in the movie, and he has a candy corn pattern printed on his torso that's completely hidden under his beard piece. So you have to physically remove the beard from the minifigure just to see the design. Clearly, this was meant to be a very subtle reference. In early 2004, LEGO replaced their old gray and brown colors with bluish gray variants that fans nicknamed Blay. This absolutely devastated the Icons theme and adult builders who had been collecting for years, because now their pieces didn't match the ones they'd had for so long. The backlash was so bad that LEGO's community manager Jack McKee posted a public apology on Lugnet in May of 2004. He admitted they hoped the change would go fairly unnoticed, which shows they knew it would be controversial. But at least the Blay color change affected every piece, because the Harry Potter theme has a material problem that's way more specific. Certain minifigures use hair pieces molded from soft, rubbery plastic instead of normal ABS, and Cho Chang is one of the best examples. The material looks dull and feels completely out of place next to regular LEGO pieces. Jay's Bricklog even called them god-awful in his Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts CMF review. So that's how you know it's bad. But speaking of wrong-looking minifigures, Star Wars had a design disaster back in 2012. When LEGO started making sets based on the Clone Wars TV show, they wanted the minifigures to match the show's art style. So they gave certain characters these giant anime eyes, and literally nobody liked them. Padme in the Malevolence set was one of the first to get this treatment, and everyone hated it right out of the gate. There's even a site called BrickElo that has a community rating feature, and the data consistently places these Big Eye Clone Wars figures as the worst rated Star Wars minifigures ever made. I get why LEGO did it, but one of the most controversial decisions they've ever made was launching the Friends mini doll in 2012. Instead of using regular minifigures for the theme, LEGO made an entirely new type of figure, and the backlash was huge. There were entire petitions against it on a website called change.org. People wrote academic papers calling out the gender stereotyping, and there are debates between AFOLs that are still going on to this day. But they don't just look bad. Mini dolls are incompatible with regular minifigure accessories. They have completely different proportions, so they don't even work with regular LEGO. But this figure somehow gets even worse in the Disney princess theme. These mini dolls have giant skirt pieces over their legs, which makes it impossible for them to move. At least the regular Friends figs can move their legs. I mean, this is just insane. But now, let me show you something that's been frustrating Marvel fans for years. LEGO consistently makes Marvel minifigures without leg printing that clearly exists in what they're made after. Black Widow's suit has details on the legs in the movies, but Lego doesn't print them. Captain Marvel's costume has leg details, but again, Lego skips them. There are a bunch of minifigures where leg detail exists in the actual costume, but Lego leaves it blank to save money. But at least Marvel sets use actual minifigures, because the earliest DC superheroes wave from 2012 to 2013 had figures like Batman, Green Lantern, and the Joker instead of actual minifigures. Brick Ranker's article on the worst Lego sets ever calls them giant-sized monstrosities, and they're definitely right. Clearly, bigger isn't always better, and a theme with a similar problem is Jurassic World, which has some of the worst price per piece ratios in all of Lego. Why? Because some of the sets have these giant single molded dinosaur bodies instead of brick built ones. Brick Fanatics did some digging and found that every single Jurassic World set with these pieces has a worse price per piece ratio than ones without them. The T-Rex dinosaur breakout set is about 32 cents per piece, which is insanely high. The community is always debating on whether Lego made the right choice or not with these giant dinosaur bodies. But Jurassic World isn't even the only theme with this problem. The Dreams theme has the exact same issue. The mascot, Z-Blob, is a giant pre-molded rubbery blob and is in a ton of different sets. Like the Jurassic World dinosaur, this single molded piece makes the price of any set it's in way higher, takes away the fun of building with bricks, and has basically zero use outside of the Dreams theme. But this next theme has a different problem. The City 4+ sub-theme has been taking away everything that makes Lego interesting. Instead of using normal bricks, these sets use big pieces that snap together with almost no actual building. Brick Fanatics always uses the term juniorize in negative reviews, calling out how these oversimplified builds hurt the City theme's reputation. And just like City, the classic theme has been taken over by the same juniorization problem. The modern classic 4+ line fills sets with big eyepieces, giant single molded cars, and insanely simplified builds, which is the complete opposite of what classic is supposed to be about. Obviously, 4-year-olds need their Lego sets to be way more simple than what adults build. But people think Lego should have just made them their own theme instead of throwing the sets into City and Classic. It completely defeats the purpose of the next theme, Duplo, because if this theme exists, then why do these other themes need sets for 4-year-olds in the first place? This is probably the nerdiest complaint in this video, but the truth is, people don't have any real problems with City or Classic, so this is the biggest one. But one of the worst problems people have with certain themes is how some of them need technology just to be able to work. The entire Super Mario theme is built around interactive electronic figures that react to different things using Bluetooth and an app. Mario, Luigi, and Peach all need this app to function properly. Without it, they're just expensive decorations. Lego eventually made paper instructions because of how mad everyone was, but the figures still need firmware updates, which you can only get from the app. The community's biggest fear is that when Lego discontinues the app in 10 or 15 years, all of this expensive stuff will be worthless. This has happened to so many different themes in the past, so nothing's stopping it from happening to Mario too. But even a classic theme like Technic has the exact same problem now. In 2020, Lego killed the beloved Power Function system and replaced it with Control+/Powered Up, which only works with an app. Power Functions was simple. Plug a motor in, flick a switch, and it works. No app, no phone, no Bluetooth connection required. But Control Plus needs all of these things. Flagship sets like the Liber LR13000 are fully dependent on this app, which means when Lego eventually takes it off the App Store, these expensive sets won't work anymore. But at least those apps were made by actual people. In 2024, Lego was caught using AI-generated images for an official Ninjago quiz on their website. The community immediately noticed something was wrong. Distorted minifigure hands, wrong character colors, lore inaccuracies that no actual Ninjago fan would get wrong, and the most obvious thing, the art style. The worst part though is that LEGO using AI is super hypocritical. They market themselves as a creativity brand. Their whole thing is to encourage imagination and creation, but then they use AI to cut corners on one of the most popular themes of this generation. But now, let me tell you about an update to a theme that made every new set incompatible with its old ones. In 2020, Speed Champions cars jumped from 6 wide to 8 wide, which broke backwards compatibility with every single set before that year. Cars from different eras don't look normal next to each other anymore, and they don't fit on LEGO City roads or road plates either. The community split hard on this. Some people were happy about the change, while others hated the fact that their collection didn't match anymore. But speaking of scale problems, the Green Hill Zone set from the Sonic theme is super hated for being the wrong scale. The Sonic minifigure is too big to fit naturally with other minifigures, or anything outside of the Sonic theme. If you put him anywhere else, he just doesn't look right. The community also hates that the Sonic theme barely gets any sets to begin with, but what they might not realize is that the theme just got retired this year, which will definitely end up being their biggest problem. But at least the Sonic theme had some diversity, because Brickheadz uses the same formula for every single set. After building a few, it gets super repetitive, and every character looks exactly the same. This is one of those themes that you either love or hate because of how repetitive it is. But to be honest, most people hate it. Repetition is also the main complaint with the Architecture Skylines sub-theme. Skylines launched in 2016 and replaced big detailed sets with tiny ones. The original architecture theme had super detailed builds like the Guggenheim and Falling Water sets, which required real building techniques. But Skylines are basically just small versions of the same thing over and over. Honestly, I like a lot of the Skyline sets, but I can see why people are so mad. I mean, they replaced some really cool sets. But if you want the most mind-numbing, repetitive building experience, LEGO art sets are basically just display pieces built with thousands of 1x1 tiles. So they're literally perfect for this. Brickset's launch article points out the bad price per piece ratio, saying given the sets are almost exclusively 1x1 round tiles, the PPP is actually quite high. But Brick Nerd points out the biggest problem, that the original art sets were purely mosaic depictions, with almost no real building. And that's definitely the biggest issue. But now, let's talk about one of the worst reviewed LEGO sets ever, which is in the Ideas theme. The winning set for the We Love Sports Ideas contest was supposed to be a full-size 11-on-11 foosball table, but the official set that LEGO released was scaled down to a tiny 5-on-5 table instead, which is less than half the original size. Why? Because LEGO couldn't make long, durable axle rods for the full-size version. At launch, it had 5 1-star reviews out of 9 total reviews on LEGO.com, and Brick Fanatics made a dedicated article asking if table football was one of the worst idea sets ever made. People were so mad that LEGO promised one thing, couldn't deliver it, and then charged $250 for the downgraded version. But speaking of broken promises, Creator 3-in-1 sets are supposed to give you 3 great builds, but the second and third builds are almost always way worse than the main one. Rebrickable's review of the pirate ship set calls the alternates not really bad, but just not good enough compared to the ship. And Brothers Brick's T-Rex review points out that the Triceratops alternate has gigantic legs, saying those giant rear limbs do support the Triceratops standing up on its hind legs and shaking it like it's 1999. This is the most consistent documented problem across the entire theme. You buy the set for 3 builds, but you really only get 1 good one. But one thing fans can't get over in the Botanicals theme is that most of the sets don't come with vases. Almost every flower set, like the flower bouquet, the wildflower bouquet, and the dried flower centerpiece, is made to be displayed in a vase, but there's no vase included in any of them. Multiple Brickset and Brothers Brick reviews call this out directly. The wildflower bouquet has comments like, "I do wish it had a vase included. My current one is getting full." And again, stuff the flowers. I need that vase. So clearly, people really need more of these. But at least you can buy Botanicals sets whenever you want. The Bricklink Designer Program theme asks fans to pre-fund sets with crowdfunding. This means popular fan-designed sets need money up front months before they're done, sell out before most people can buy one, and then have insane resale prices once they're gone. The theme was made to give fan-made sets a chance outside of the Ideas theme, but it turned into a scalper's dream, which is never a good sign. And speaking of availability problems, the Monkey Kid theme has had this exact issue specifically in the US since 2020. A bunch of sets are only available in China, and prices are super high on the aftermarket. So American fans who want sets usually completely miss out. The sets themselves are actually really well made and get good reviews all the time, but the way LEGO releases them makes them almost impossible to get in America. This is one of the only themes in modern day LEGO with this problem, and honestly, it's one of the easiest ones to fix if LEGO just listens to the people. The worst one by far is the NBA basketball team set from 2003, because it has 300 stickers in total. LEGO's never made a set with more stickers than this one, and it only cost $10 at retail. Luckily, it was basically a sticker pack, so you didn't have to place all of them. They were there so you could customize your NBA minifigures, and LEGO gave us a bunch of different teams and numbers to give us as many options as possible. And they've actually done something like this in a ton of other sets. There's this train set with 162, this bus set with 119, and this other train set with 116. These and the basketball one from before are in the top 10 sets with the most stickers, but since you don't place all of them, they don't really count. So let me show you some sets with an insane amount of stickers that actually have to get placed. The highest and worst one ever made is the Maersk ship set, which has 155 stickers. Maersk is one of the smallest collabs LEGO's ever had, with just 3 sets in total, and I can see why. Most of the stickers go on the containers so they can be branded properly, and this is literally the biggest waste of time. The funniest part about it though is now it sells for around $331. People are paying triple the retail price for vintage LEGO and getting smacked in the face with 155 stickers. And what's even funnier than that is there's a more expensive set in the Maersk collab with almost the same amount of stickers. The Line Triple E set. This one sells for around $450 today, which is also 3 times its retail price. But instead of 155 stickers, you're placing 133. If we do the math on this, you're paying over $3 per sticker for this set. And when you buy the Line container ship, you're paying over $2. So the difference in resale price really makes a big difference. But what do you think is worse? Overpaying for a lot of pieces and a lot of stickers, or underpaying for less pieces and a bunch of stickers? I know which one I'd choose, because if I bought any of these next sets, I'd be so mad. They're the top 4 modern LEGO sets with the worst piece to sticker ratio, and they're all super tiny. The 4th one is the Ramp Crash set from the Racers theme. And spoiler alert, the rest of these sets are in this theme too. Racers is genuinely nuts when it comes to stickers, but the Ramp Crash set only has 145 pieces. So you'd think the stickers would be low too, but no, it has 45 stickers to its name. That's 3.2 real pieces per sticker. But this set is only in 4th place, so just wait until you hear number 1. Number 3 is the Security Smash set, and this one has 10 less pieces than the Ramp Crash set, so you already know the ratio is going to be worse. To go along with those pieces, LEGO included 44 stickers, only 1 less than the Ramp Crash set with 10 more pieces. It's not a big jump by any means, but this next one absolutely is. The 2nd spot belongs to the Snake Canyon set, and this one only has 57 pieces. The sticker count isn't nearly as high as the last 2 sets since the piece count is so low, but it still has 20 stickers to its name. But now it's time for number 1. The Blue Bullet set holds the record for the worst pieces to stickers ratio in modern day LEGO, with just 50 pieces and 20 stickers. That's 7 less pieces than the Snake Canyon set at number 2. Can you imagine ripping open this set thinking you'd have a fun, easy time because it's only 50 pieces, and seeing a sticker sheet with almost half of the amount of those pieces? I'd actually be fuming. But speaking of modern day LEGO, let's look at the Diagon Alley set from 2020. It's obviously from Harry Potter, which isn't as bad with stickers like Speed Champions and Racers. The only Harry Potter set with a lot of them was the Hogwarts Castle, but that all changed when Diagon Alley was released. It retailed for $450 and took inspiration from the modular buildings theme, because all 4 sections can be connected on the side and back with Technic pins. At $450, you obviously expect some stickers, but 109 is way too many. It has 4 sticker sheets, 1 for each building, but at least it has over 5,500 pieces, so the ratio isn't that bad, because what LEGO was pulling a few years earlier was insane. In 2018, LEGO released the Ferrari Ultimate Garage set in Speed Champions, and from the theme name alone, you already know what's coming. The set only had 841 pieces, but it had 76 stickers, and you had to place every single one. The worst part is when you look at the finished build, you can tell where most of them went. And since this is modeled after a real race car, it's absolutely loaded with sponsors. The only way for LEGO to do this cheaply is to use stickers, and to make sure they got everything, they used 39 on this car alone, and it took 177 pieces to build it. I literally counted them in the instructions. It isn't as bad as the other ones from before, but 39 stickers on one car is still ridiculous. But the further back in time you go, the worse it gets. This is the Street Extreme set from 2009, and it's actually on the bigger end with 741 pieces. But with a theme like Racers, that just means you're getting way more stickers. This one has 108, which means there are only 6.86 pieces per sticker. And with a set that has this many pieces, that's a literal nightmare. But the Brick Street Custom set is even worse. This one has 1,021 pieces, and since it's in the Racers theme, LEGO gave it 124 stickers. I've been mentioning Racers a lot, so you might be wondering why it and Speed Champions have so many stickers. Basically, LEGO wanted these cars to be as authentic as possible, and since they're based on real race cars like the Ferrari 488 GTE, there are only 2 ways you can do it. Either spend a ton of money on new printed pieces or use stickers. But the reason why Racers in particular has so many is because LEGO wanted it to be affordable. Stickers are super cheap, and once they're on, they really do make these race cars look a lot better. Because they used so many of them, LEGO was able to keep the prices pretty low besides the RC cars. So they're annoying to build, but you don't have to spend that much money, and they look pretty cool. I think people would be a lot more upset if they spent hundreds on a LEGO set and had to place an insane amount of stickers. And unfortunately, this is a very real world we live in. The Old Trafford Man United set is pretty big, with almost 4,000 pieces, but that means it has to be expensive, and it definitely is, even at retail price. LEGO never factors stickers into the price of any set, so they pretty much lose money every time they make them. And even though this one was low-key a bargain when it came out, having to place 55 stickers really is just annoying. And it's not like there's a magic ratio LEGO started following after 2010. These next 2 sets are less expensive and have more stickers than the Stadium. The first one is the Technic Ferrari 488 GTE, and if we learned anything from the smaller version, we know this number is not gonna be good. It comes with 57 stickers, and with only 1,677 pieces, it makes the ratio way worse, and it feels awful because the set costs $200. The second one is the Technic Oracle Red Bull F1 car, and this one is notorious for how many stickers it has. It actually has less than the Ferrari, but it costs more and came out last year, so it's fresh on everyone's mind. It has 1,639 pieces and comes with 51 71 stickers. But the worst part is the price, coming in at $240 retail. Something I want to go back to though is the Harry Potter Hogwarts Castle set. I said before that it's known for having a lot of stickers, but how bad really is it? Well, the biggest problem is the price. This set was $470 when it came out in 2018. It was pretty big with just over 6,000 pieces, but along with those, you had to place 63 stickers. I know if I spent almost $500 on a Lego set, I'd be pretty pissed if I had to place that many stickers. At that price point, it feels like Lego could afford to make more printed pieces. Obviously, these 4 sets have way too many stickers for their price, but I actually want to talk about something different. Lego sets with the worst price to sticker ratio. These next 3 sets weren't that expensive when they came out, but their sticker counts basically match their retail price. So of course, they're in the Speed Champions and Racer themes. Up first is the Porsche 919 Hybrid and 917K Pit Lane set. Wow, that's a mouthful. This one came out in 2016 and was only $70, but it came with 73 stickers. That means it has a ratio of 1.04, which is actually absurd. But these next 2 sets are pretty much identical to each other. They're both the Ferrari 248 F1 team set, but one of them was made for Michael Schumacher, and the other one was made for a guy whose name I'm not even gonna try to pronounce. The one for Michael came out first in 2007 to honor his retirement from Formula 1. This guy won 7 F1 World Championships from 1999 to 2006. He was basically a legend, so Lego wanted to honor him with his very own Lego set. Unfortunately, bro got cursed with 126 stickers, and his set was only $70 retail, which makes the ratio 1.8. This is by far the worst ratio in this entire video. But remember, Lego released 2 of these sets. Kimmy's came out in 2008 because he won the F1 championship that year. But instead of giving him his own set, Lego just reused Michael's and replaced his minifigure with Kimmy's. Not gonna lie, I'd feel pretty disrespected if I was this guy. My own Lego set would be sick, until I realize it's already been used and it's in the top 5 for the most stickers in any Lego set ever. Besides cars, Lego keeps the sticker count pretty low in licensed sets. Besides Ninjago. For some reason, the big sets in this theme have so many stickers, even though the UCS Millennium Falcon only has 12. This isn't a new problem either. The first big Ninjago set is Ninjago City from 2017, with 4,867 pieces and 56 stickers across 2 different sheets. This set was $300 when it came out, so having to use stickers that apparently take 30 minutes to place, according to Brothers Brick, is outrageous. Especially because they have a mistake. Sticker 36 just doesn't exist on either sheet. So yeah, there's actually 1 less sticker than we thought, but come on, that does not make it any better. Right after this, Lego released Ninjago City Docks, and pretty much nothing changed. It has over 3,500 pieces, 53 stickers, and retailed for $230. The price does technically make it better than Ninjago City, but City Docks released the same year as the UCS Millennium Falcon, and that one has 12 stickers because Lego knew it'd be popular. But Ninjago is popular too, so it's still crazy to curse us with that many stickers. This set is pretty old though, so maybe it got better recently? No, it did not. Ninjago City Markets released in 2023, and since it's the biggest set in Lego Ninjago, you'd think Lego would chill out with the stickers. But no, they made us place 72. This is absolutely absurd for a flagship set that costs almost $400. But I have to say, they really do bring the city to life, and that's the problem with these city sets. You literally need the stickers to make it look good. Take the Megapolis City set from Monkey Kid, for example. It's made with a little over 2,300 pieces, and it genuinely looks really good, but a lot of the details are from the 75 stickers that come with it. Now, this set was less than $200 when it came out, and considering the piece count, it is technically a bargain. But that's only because LEGO compensated with 3 sticker sheets. But if there's one set that feels worse than everything in this video, it's the Sentai Fortress set from Exoforce. This theme is a perfect storm for high sticker counts, because it was a budget theme for kids, and you can tell from the retail prices of all these sets. But the Sentai Fortress was the biggest and most expensive one, which meant LEGO had to use a ton of stickers. The sheet actually doesn't look that bad at first, but these numbers are sticker groups, not individual ones. So there are actually 101 stickers, not 58. Almost 7% of the pieces in this set are stickers, and with 1,448 pieces, you end up with way too many. Multiple builders have made functional LEGO versions over the years, but the most popular one by far is by a builder named Puzz Lego. His version got 10,000 supporters on LEGO Ideas, which is honestly insane when you think about how hard it is to get that kind of support. But it's no surprise, because it had corner pieces, edge pieces, and center pieces that all rotated independently, just like the original. You can twist it horizontally and vertically, and it has functional corner cutting, which means you can slightly misalign a turn and it'll still work. The fact that someone figured out how to make this dream a reality is incredible, but that's not the only fidget toy from the 2010s that's been remade out of LEGO. Someone made a super accurate LEGO fidget spinner, and yes, it absolutely spins. Now, if you remember fidget spinners, you know that the whole point was having weight distributed on the edges so it would spin smoothly and for a long time. That's what makes them so satisfying to use. So the builder ran into a problem. LEGO pieces are light, and they're not designed to be weighted perfectly. So the builder had to use hot glue to attach weights to the edges, which gives it that weight so it can keep spinning. But other than those weights, everything else is pure LEGO. You can flick it with your finger and watch it spin for a solid amount of time, which is honestly all anyone wanted from fidget spinners anyway. They were never about functionality, they were just about having something satisfying to spin. But if you liked fidget spinners, you probably also liked infinity cubes. You know, those cubes made of smaller cubes that infinitely fold in on themselves. They got really popular around the same time as fidget spinners because they're super satisfying to play with. Well, a builder named Master Builder Alec made a tutorial showing exactly how to build a functional LEGO Infinity Cube. It works exactly like a regular one, folding and unfolding in that mesmerizing, satisfying pattern. The tricky part with building one out of LEGO is getting the hinges right, so everything rotates smoothly without being too loose or too tight. But Alec figured it out, and the result is a fully functional Infinity Cube that you can fidget with for hours. Speaking of things that seem impossible to make out of LEGO, someone actually built a functional yo-yo. Now, obviously, you can't make string out of plastic bricks, so the yo-yo uses regular string. But the actual yo-yo part, the 2 discs that spin and the axle connecting them, they're all LEGO pieces. You can throw it down and it comes back up just like a real yo-yo. It's not as smooth or high-performing as an actual one, but the fact that it functions at all is pretty crazy. Another skill-gapped toy that's been recreated in LEGO is the kendama. Now, if you've never seen a kendama, it's this Japanese toy that has a wooden handle with cups on it and a rod in the middle, and there's a ball connected to the handle by a string. You try to swing the ball and catch it in different cups or spike it on the top. Now, the LEGO version is a lot more square and blocky instead of the traditional smooth, curvy design that real kendamas have. But here's the thing, it's fully functional and 100% LEGO. The builder prioritized making it work over making it look accurate, which is definitely the better choice. He used LEGO chain pieces for the string, which gives it flexibility and the right length. And then he used an official LEGO branded rubber band to connect the chain to the ball to keep it from flying off when you're swinging it around. The builder's main goal was to keep everything 100% LEGO, and he definitely accomplished it. But now let's talk about Nerf guns, because multiple people have built LEGO versions. And I'm not just talking about LEGO guns that look cool but don't do anything. These actually fire Nerf darts, just like real Nerf guns. Builders use rubber bands as the power source and spring-loaded mechanisms to launch the darts. Some of these builds are surprisingly powerful and accurate. You can load a Nerf dart, pull back the hammer, and fire it across an entire room. Some builders have even recreated specific Nerf models like the Maverick or the Recon, making them as accurate as possible while still being functional. My personal favorite is this custom one built by Astonishing Studios. He made an entire tutorial on how to build this thing, so if you want a LEGO Nerf gun, definitely go check out that video. While we're on toy guns, let's talk about Super Soakers. There are two kinds of LEGO Super Soakers out there, and they're both really cool in different ways. The first one is a fan-made recreation of the iconic Super Soaker 200, which was one of the most popular water guns in the 90s. Now, this version doesn't actually shoot water, but it has a working pump action mechanism that you can actually pump back and forth. The builder also used translucent green pieces from the LEGO Ninja Turtles theme for the water reservoir, and there are studs inside to represent water. So you can load it up, pump it like you're pressurizing it, and pretend to shoot, even though nothing actually comes out. But here's the crazy part. LEGO actually sold real water guns in the early 2000s. These were official LEGO products that you could buy in stores, and they were part of the now retired Aqua Raiders theme. But let's move away from weapons and talk about something more wholesome, Mr. Potato Head. Multiple builders have made LEGO versions with swappable accessories just like the real toy, and some of them are incredibly detailed. You can give him different eyes, mouths, hats, mustaches, and accessories, and this version in particular lets you do all of these things. Some builds even include both Mr. and Mrs. Potato Head, like this one, and they come with tons of different accessories, so you can style them however you want, while others are made as display pieces, like this one on Rebrickable. But the builder who made the one on LEGO Ideas really thought theirs through, because they even added a compartment on the back where you can store the extra accessories. That way you don't lose them, and everything stays organized. Another iconic toy from the past is the Etch-a-Sketch, and there are two different LEGO versions that serve different purposes. The first one looks really accurate to the original, with the red frame and the two white knobs on the bottom. It's got the classic Etch-a-Sketch aesthetic, and if you saw it on a shelf, you'd think it was a perfect recreation. But unfortunately, it's just a display piece. It doesn't actually work. However, the second version does, and it's way more impressive from an engineering standpoint. It uses an EV3 brick, which is LEGO's programmable robotics brain from the Mindstorms theme. The EV3 controls motors that are connected to the knobs, and when you turn them, they control the line you see on screen. Now, obviously, this thing looks nothing like a real Etch-a-Sketch, but the fact that it works makes it really sick. Now, this next toy is a little old, but did you know people even make music boxes out of LEGO? Unfortunately, these don't actually play music like real music boxes do, because you'd need actual musical components for that. But they do spin when you wind them up, which is already pretty difficult to make with LEGO. You turn the key on the bottom, and the mechanism inside rotates the top portion just like winding up a real music box. It's more about the aesthetic and experience than the sound, but it's still a really clever recreation. Along that same line, someone built a LEGO Jack-in-the-Box, but again, you can't actually wind it up and have everything pop out like a real one. I can't even imagine how hard that'd be to make out of LEGO. Instead, the build is designed to look like a Jack-in-the-Box that's already been wound up and sprung open, so it captures the moment right after the surprise happens. It's more of a display piece that shows the most iconic moment of a Jack-in-the-Box, which is still cool to see. But now it's time for one of the GOATs of childhood toys, Beyblades. Obviously, LEGO fans have made custom Beyblades that spin and battle each other, but here's what's really cool. LEGO actually made their own official version, and they're called Ninjago Spinners. These are basically LEGO's answer to Beyblades. You build them with different pieces and configurations, attach them to a LEGO launcher, rip them, and they battle just like actual Beyblades. The company who makes Beyblades does this really weird thing where they drop them in waves, so you can't just go and buy them all the time. But you can buy the Dragon Spinjutsu Battle Pack from LEGO right now, and it comes with 2 Ninjago minifigures, so I think the choice here is pretty obvious. Anyways, another popular battling toy from the early 2000s were Bakugan. If you remember Bakugan, they were these spheres that you'd roll across the floor, and when they hit a magnetic card, they'd automatically spring open and transform into a creature. The LEGO version doesn't have that automatic magnetic opening feature, because that would be nearly impossible to recreate with LEGO. But it can open and close manually, which means you can transform it yourself from a sphere into the creature. So it's still a functional recreation. You just have to do the transformation by hand instead of having it happen automatically. But some of the most impressive nostalgic toy recreations are board games. There's a builder named Jay Fields on Flickr who's made incredible, accurate, and functional versions of Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Connect 4, and Simon Says. And these aren't just display models that look cool. They're actually playable games. The Rock'em Sock'em Robots have working punching mechanisms, so you can actually press the buttons and make the robots punch punch each other. Connect 4 has slots where you can put the discs, and they stack properly just like the original game. And the Simon Says looks just like the classic electronic game with the colored buttons. Though there is an important distinction about Simon Says. If a LEGO version looks exactly like the original game, it's usually not functional. So unfortunately, this one from Jay Thiels isn't. But people have made functional versions, and they're all over YouTube, only they look nothing like the original game. It's kind of like the Kendama. If you want functionality, you're gonna have to give up looks. And if functionality is what you want, look no further than this working LEGO Bop It. Now, Bop It is way more complex than Simon Says, because you're not just pressing buttons, you're bopping, twisting, and pulling. The LEGO version has all the main Bop It functions built in, and the builder even coded it to give random commands, just like the real game. So it'll tell you to twist it, then bop it, then pull it, and you have to react quickly and do the right action. It doesn't look like an actual Bop It because of how it had to be built, but it works just like the real one, which is honestly one of the most impressive LEGO recreations in this video. But not all nostalgic toys have to be handheld. Some of them are about capturing a moment or a memory, like this build of the iconic warehouse level from Tony Hawk Pro Skater. If you grew up playing those games, you know exactly which level this is. It's the very first level in the first game, and it's where everyone learned how to play. You'd skate around this warehouse, grinding rails, hitting ramps, and trying to find the secret tape. The LEGO version recreates the layout with all the ramps, rails, quarter pipes, and obstacles in all the right places. You can use it as a display piece to remember those gaming sessions, or you can actually use it with fingerboards to recreate tricks. Speaking of fingerboards, there are actually 3 different kinds of LEGO fingerboards, and they're all cool in their own way. The first one isn't technically pure LEGO. Someone took a real fingerboard deck, then sanded down LEGO base plates to make them thin and slightly flexible, and glued them onto the deck. So it looks like a LEGO fingerboard because the grip tape is made from base plates, but it's still a regular fingerboard underneath. The second version is a makeshift fingerboard, built entirely from LEGO pieces with no real fingerboard parts. It doesn't look like a traditional fingerboard because it's blocky and square, but it still works. However, there's a third thing that's different from both of those. Argoat Brick Science built an entire fingerboard park out of LEGO, but not for LEGO fingerboards, for regular fingerboards. So you're taking a tech deck or whatever brand you have and using it on LEGO ramps, rails, and other obstacles. Now that I think about it though, there's no real reason you can't use a LEGO fingerboard in this park. That'd be pretty cool. Anyways, there's one last category of nostalgic toys: remote control cars. People have built fully functional LEGO RC cars using power functions or the newer powered up components. And these things actually drive. You can control them with a remote, race them around, and some builders even add suspension systems and steering mechanisms to make them handle better. I mean, they treat these things like real race cars. RC cars are the most recreated toy by far, whether it's by fans or LEGO themselves. But because of how important they are, there's no way I could leave them out. The Hogwarts Icon set came out in 2021 to celebrate 20 years of LEGO Harry Potter, and it's absolutely packed with references. One of the coolest ones is on the label on the bottle of Gillyweed, which has the number 4701 on it. Now, if you know your LEGO Harry Potter history, you know that 4701 is the set number for the Sorting Hat, which was the first LEGO Harry Potter set ever released back in 2001. So LEGO put this reference on a potion bottle as a 20-year anniversary tribute to where it all started. But the Gillyweed bottle isn't the only one with a reference. There's another bottle called Wormwood Infusion, and on the back it says P349. But here's the thing. This was supposed to say P394 to reference what Snape said to his potions class in The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Turn to page 394.
But the designers accidentally switched the numbers around during production, and nobody caught it before the set was made. So now P349 is just sitting there on the bottle with no official meaning. The designers have been crowdsourcing ideas from fans to give P349 a new backstory, which is a pretty funny way to fix the mistake. Speaking of Snape and potions, the Hogwarts Icon set also has a bottle of powdered root of asphodel, and this is referencing Snape's very first question to Harry in the Sorcerer's Stone.
Tell me, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood?
Harry has absolutely no idea what the answer is, and Snape uses this to embarrass him in front of the entire class. So LEGO including both asphodel and wormwood in this set is such a perfect callback to that moment. There's also a tray in this set that holds all of the potion bottles, and it has HG printed on the side. This stands for Hermione Granger, and it's a reference to her potions box from the Chamber of Secrets. In the movie, Hermione brews Polyjuice potion in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom, so she she, Harry, and Ron can transform into Slytherin students and interrogate Malfoy. She keeps all of her potions ingredients organized in a little box, because of course she does. So LEGO gave this tray the HG initials as a tribute to Hermione being the true potions expert of the trio, and they also put it on the bottle of Polyjuice potion. One more potions reference in this set is that the Felix Felicis bottle glows in the dark. Felix Felicis is also known as Liquid Luck, and it's one of the rarest and most powerful potions in the wizarding world. Harry wins a bottle of it in the Half-Blood Prince after successfully brewing a perfect draught of living death using instructions from the Half-Blood Prince's textbook. In the movie, the potion shimmers in the light, but it doesn't actually glow. But LEGO decided to make it glow in the dark anyway, which is a fun detail, even if it's not technically accurate to the films. But there's still one more Easter egg in the Hogwarts icon set, but it's a bit different. Inside some of the potion bottles, there are red and green cones that might be representing the Portuguese flag. Designer Marcos Bessa is Portuguese, and he's known for sneaking Portugal references into his sets whenever he can. But probably the most unique thing about the Hogwarts icon set is the buildable Harry Potter glasses. They're made with Technic pieces, and they're actually wearable. Now, don't get me wrong, they're super flimsy and completely impractical, and they'll probably fall apart if you try to wear them for more than a few seconds. But you can put them on your face and pretend to be Harry Potter, which is pretty funny. Anyways, let's move on to the Gringotts Bank set. One of the deepest vaults in this set is Vault 713, and if you know the Sorcerer's Stone, you know this is where the stone was originally hidden before Dumbledore moved it to Hogwarts. So LEGO couldn't have made this set without including this vault. There's also a sticker in the Gringotts set that shows the Ukrainian Iron Belly's feeding schedule, which is a very specific reference to how Gringotts operates. In the books and movies, Gringotts keeps a massive dragon in the deepest parts of the vaults to guard the most valuable treasure. The feeding schedule sticker references this by showing when and how often the dragon gets fed, which is a detail that only appears in the books. So LEGO including this shows they were paying attention to more than just the movies. Speaking of the vaults, there's a pearl gold goblet in one of them, and this is Hufflepuff's cup. Now, obviously, it's just a regular LEGO goblet piece, but in the context of Gringotts, it's instantly recognizable as one of Voldemort's Horcruxes. Bellatrix Lestrange hid it in her family vault at Gringotts, thinking it would be safe there forever. But in the Deathly Hallows Part 1, Harry, Ron, and Hermione break into Gringotts to steal the cup so they can destroy it. So having Hufflepuff's cup hidden in this set is a great nod to one of the most important objects in the final movies. The Gringotts set also comes with an exclusive Harry minifigure, and he's wearing Dudley's old hand-me-down clothes. The minifigure has an oversized belt that's clearly too big for him, and it's keeping up his baggy pants that don't fit properly. This is new robes. At this point in the story, Harry's still living with the Dursleys, and they make him wear Dudley's old clothes even though Dudley is way bigger than him. So Harry shows up to Diagon Alley looking like a weird kid with no drip. But now let's talk about the Burrow set. In Arthur Weasley's bedroom, there's a miniature red telephone box sitting on a shelf, and this is referencing the entrance to the Ministry of Magic. In the Order of the Phoenix, the Ministry's visitor entrance is a red telephone box in London. You have to dial 62442, which spells magic, and then the phone box descends underground into the Ministry. But this telephone box in Arthur's room might also be referencing his obsession with Muggle artifacts. Arthur works in the Misuse of Muggle Artifacts office, and he's fascinated by anything Muggle made. He collects plugs, batteries, and other random Muggle technology that wizards don't understand. So the telephone box works both as a Ministry reference and a character detail for Arthur. The Burrow also has a functional Floo Network fireplace, which is one of the coolest play features in any LEGO Harry Potter set. It's most famously used in the Chamber of Secrets, when the Weasleys and Harry use it to get to Diagon Alley. But Harry says the wrong word.
Diagonally.
And ends up in the wrong part of town. Obviously, LEGO can't make it so a minifigure actually disappears. So instead, they just have the piece that represents the Floo powder fly up into the chimney with the minifigure on top of it. That way, the powder flies up like it's supposed to, and the minifigure looks like it disappeared. But now, let's jump into the Chamber of Secrets set, because this one has some sick details. It came out in 2021 for the 20th anniversary of LEGO Harry Potter, and it comes with an exclusive Golden Voldemort minifigure. It's the only set where you can get this minifigure, but it actually isn't that expensive. Obviously, Voldemort was never golden in the movies, but LEGO has a tradition of making golden anniversary minifigures for special milestone sets. So if you're a collector, this is basically a must-have because it's literally never coming back. The Chamber of Secrets set also has a glow-in-the-dark, nearly headless Nick minifigure, and this was a huge deal when it came out. The minifigure has luminescent properties, so when you turn off the lights, Nick actually glows in the dark. This was the first fully glow-in-the-dark minifigure in the entire Harry Potter theme, which honestly should have happened way earlier. Ghosts are such a huge part of Hogwarts, and making them glow just makes sense. The set also has 6 random wizard cards, and there are 16 total cards to collect across different sets in the Harry Potter theme. These are referencing the Chocolate Frog cards from the movies, which are collectible trading cards featuring famous witches and frog on the Hogwarts Express, and the card inside is Dumbledore. But as we heard from Ron, he is a But of course, the main feature of the Chamber of Secrets set is the Basilisk. It's a massive 3-part snake with opening jaws, a rotatable head, and a reconfigurable tail. The Basilisk emerges from the statue of Salazar Slytherin's mouth, just like in the movie, and it's one of the most impressive builds in the entire Harry Potter theme. In the story, the Basilisk is a giant serpent that's been living in the chamber for 1,000 years, killing Muggleborns on command. Harry has to destroy it using Gryffindor's sword, which actually comes in the set as an accessory. But that's not the only accessory in this set. The big reveal after Harry killed the Basilisk was that Tom Riddle was still living through his diary. We didn't know it at the time, but this was one of Voldemort's 7 Horcruxes. So to kill that version of him, Harry stabbed the diary with a fang from the Basilisk, and LEGO used the destroyed version as an accessory. But now let's talk about the Hogwarts Express set, because it recreates scenes from multiple different movies all in one train. You've got Harry, Ron, and Hermione's first meeting from the Sorcerer's Stone, where they're all sitting in the same train compartment and becoming friends. You've got Professor Lupin fighting off the Dementor from the Prisoner of Azkaban, where Harry faints and Lupin saves everyone with a Patronus charm. But best of all, you can find Neville's toad that Hermione was looking for in the back of the train. The set comes with 20 minifigures to recreate all of these iconic moments. But speaking of minifigures, the very first LEGO Harry Potter sets in 2001 actually introduced a new piece that changed LEGO forever. Before Harry Potter, all LEGO minifigures had the same standard sized legs, but LEGO needed shorter legs for younger characters like Harry, Ron, and Hermione, since they were only 11 years old in the first book. So to help portray them accurately, they made the first ever minifigure legs specifically for the Harry Potter theme. These shorter legs became standard for child characters in every LEGO theme after that. So Harry Potter didn't just launch a successful LEGO theme, it actually changed how LEGO made minifigures. But now let's talk about the Hogsmeade Village set, which has a Dumbledore's Army signature list, with each character's name written in a way that reflects their personality. Harry's signature is casual because he doesn't like attention, Ron's is a bit messy and casual, Hermione's is neat, organized, and perfectly legible, George's is surprisingly clean, and Fred's is a literal signature, probably because he wanted to seem better than George. LEGO actually put thought into how each character would sign their name based on their personality traits, which is such a small but perfect detail that most people never notice. There's also a tiny typewriter and quill hidden in an alcove in the Hog's Head pub. This is a reference to Rita Skeeter's expose interview in the Order of the Phoenix. Rita is a journalist who writes terrible lies about Harry for the Daily Prophet, but Hermione discovers she's an unregistered animagus, so she blackmails her into writing a true article about Harry for the Quibbler, and the interview takes place in Hogshead. The Hogsmeade set also has Ariana Dumbledore's portrait as a sticker, and the portrait actually opens to reveal a secret passage to Hogwarts. Ariana is Albus Dumbledore's younger sister, who died tragically when she was young. In the Deathly Hallows Part 2, her portrait hangs in the Room of Requirement, and Neville uses it as a secret passage to sneak in and out of Hogwarts while it's under the control of Death Eaters and Dementors. This is the first time Ariana has appeared in LEGO form, even though she's just a sticker. But the fact that the portrait functions as an actual door makes it super sick. Now let's talk about 12 Grimmauld Place, which, if you don't remember, is a house that belongs to the Black family. On the top floor, there are severed house elf heads displayed under glass domes. This is one of the darkest and most disturbing details in any LEGO set, but it's completely accurate to the books. The Black family has a tradition of beheading their old house elves when they get too weak to work, and then mounting their heads on the wall as decorations. It shows just how cruel and evil the pureblood supremacist families can be. There's also Salazar Slytherin's locket hidden above Regulus Black's bedroom window. The set actually has 2 locket tiles, one for the real Horcrux and one for the fake one that Regulus left behind. In the story, Regulus discovers that Voldemort made a Horcrux and hid it in a cave, so he stole it and replaced it with a fake one and left a note that said,
"To the Dark Lord. I know I will be dead long before you read this, but I want you to know that it was I who discovered your secret. I have stolen the real Horcrux and intend to destroy it as soon as I can. I face death in the hope that when you meet your match, you will be mortal once more.
It's one of the most heroic moments in the entire series, and Regulus dies trying to destroy the Horcrux, so having both lockets in this set is a perfect tribute to his sacrifice. But now, let's talk about the massive Hogwarts Castle set, one of the best sets in all of LEGO Harry Potter. Hidden at the bottom of the set is a secret Devil's Snare chamber, and the designer specifically called it a bonus Easter egg for builders to discover on their own. The set also has every other challenge too. If you follow the path, you'll find the flying keys version of Voldemort. There's also a miniature vanishing cabinet tucked away in the room of requirement. The room is already packed with tons of random objects, so the vanishing cabinet just blends in with everything else, but it's into Hogwarts. Johnny wasn't a main character in the movie at all, so to find him, you have to look very closely at the Cuckoo Land scene, specifically at the part where Emmett gets shoved into the dog to assemble all the master builders. Right when Emmett's at the door, you can see a man with a very familiar Australian hat walking inside, but this isn't proof of anything yet. For that, just skip forward a few seconds, and you'll see the same guy taking a seat inside the dog, and that is without a doubt Johnny Thunder. But here's where it gets funny. He doesn't actually get to do anything cool. When the super secret police attack Cloud Cuckoo Land, Johnny Thunder pretty much gets trampled by the Orb of Titleist, so he's only on screen for like 2 seconds. But even though he got absolutely destroyed, fans didn't care. Just seeing him again after so long was enough to make them happy. But LEGO kept going, because right after the movie came out, they released the super secret police dropship set, which comes with a Johnny Thunder minifigure, the first one since 2003. So of course people lost their minds over it. But what's really cool is how much they updated his design. The original Johnny Thunder from the late 90s and early 2000s had that classic LEGO face with the simple dot eyes. But this 2014 version, he's got pupils now, which gives him way more personality. He's also got back printing on his torso, which the original never had, and the overall detail is just so much better. Anyways, after he showed up in the LEGO movie, LEGO clearly wasn't done with him. In 2015, they released the Scooby-Doo Mummy Museum mystery set, and hidden inside was a portrait of Johnny Thunder. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would he be in a Scooby-Doo set? Well, the set takes place in a museum with a mummy mystery, so having an old-timey explorer like Johnny Thunder actually makes perfect sense. The portrait shows him holding a diamond with a biplane flying overhead, and at the bottom it says 1922, which gives it that classic adventurer's vibe. It's pretty easy to miss, but speaking of Easter eggs that are easy to miss, let's talk about the Ninjago City Docks set from 2018. Now, if you know anything about the big Ninjago City sets, you know they're absolutely loaded with references to old LEGO themes. But one of the Johnny Thunder ones is this billboard on the outside of the arcade that says Thunder Adventure Tours. The billboard shows Johnny Thunder and set 5935, the Island Hopper, which was one of the original Adventurers sets from way back in the year 2000. So not only are they referencing the character, but they're also referencing a specific set from over 20 years ago. But wait, the Ninjago City Docks set has another Johnny Thunder reference, and this one is hidden way better than the billboard. If you go inside Runday's house and lift up the removable top bunk bed, you'll find a signed photograph of Johnny Thunder just sitting there underneath. And get this, the photo isn't even of the classic Johnny Thunder design from the Adventurers theme. It's actually of the Jungle Explorer from CMF Series 19, which came out in 2019, a whole year after City Docks. So LEGO was basically future-proofing this Easter egg by using a design that hadn't even been released yet and foreshadowing a brand new Johnny Thunder design at the same time. But the fact that they hid this under a bunk bed is what makes it so perfect. Like, you have to actively take the set apart to find it. But now, let's actually talk about that Jungle Explorer minifigure, because this is a pretty big moment in Johnny Thunder's history. In 2019, LEGO released the collectible minifigure series 19 pack, and one of the figures inside is called the Jungle Explorer. Now, technically, LEGO never officially said that this was Johnny Thunder. They didn't put his name on the packaging, they didn't mention him in any promotional material, nothing. But come on, it's so obviously him. They basically just took everything from his old design and made it slightly different so they could keep his name out of it. Obviously, people started calling him Johnny Thunder anyway, even though LEGO was being vague about it. But I think I know why LEGO did this. They wanted to bring the character back without fully committing to reviving the Adventurers theme. Like, if they officially called him Johnny Thunder, people would expect more Adventurers sets, more characters, maybe even a whole new wave. But by keeping it vague and just calling him the Jungle Explorer, they could test the waters. And honestly, people loved it. But let's go back to Ninjago for a minute, because this guy actually got referenced in the Ninjago City Garden set in 2021. One of the posters in this set shows the Jungle Explorer, a woman, and a monkey finding a golden crystal in the jungle. The Ninjargon translates to Adventure Island, coming soon. So even though this set is almost 5 years old, LEGO might still have something planned for him. But this set also has a reference to the origin of Johnny Thunder, and I don't mean the Adventurers theme. To find it, you have to go to the gift shop attached to the museum, and inside you can find a tile with someone who kind of looks like Johnny Thunder, but isn't. Obviously, we all know he's based on Indiana Jones, but that's not who this is either. This is actually Niels Milan Peterson, a LEGO designer who created the Adventurers theme. We all have this man to thank for giving us one of the most goated minifigures in LEGO history. So I wonder why he's in the gift shop and not the actual museum. Anyways, there's one last Johnny Thunder appearance I want to show you in Ninjago, and it's in the Ninjago City set from 2017. One of the buildings in this city is a comic book shop, so along with selling comics, the store also sells trading cards. All of these cards are references to different themes, but the one in the top left is clearly supposed to be Johnny Thunder. This is one of the most subtle references by far, but if you thought that was cool, just wait until you hear about the Haunted House set from 2020, because it's themed around Baron Von Baron's cursed mansion. Now, if you know anything about the Adventurers theme, you already know who Baron Von Baron is. He's Johnny Thunder's arch nemesis. Like, literally every adventure Johnny Thunder went on, the Baron was there trying to steal the treasure or sabotage him. So this entire Haunted House set is filled with artifacts that the Baron stole over the years. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this set is packed with references. First, there's the Rigo Ruby, which is one of the most iconic treasures from the Adventurers theme. Then there's a Sphinx head that's directly from set 5978, which was a part of the Egypt sub-theme. There are Anubis heads from set 5938, and there are even references to Pharaoh Hotep, who is another major villain in the Adventurers theme. So even though Johnny Thunder himself isn't physically in this set as a minifigure, his presence is absolutely everywhere. Instead of putting Johnny Thunder in the set, they made the entire thing about his relationship with his enemy. This set is about his past, but the Dino theme is about his future. LEGO released this theme in 2012, and it was all about exploring jungles and finding dinosaurs. The main character of this theme is Josh Thunder, and at first you might think the last name is just a coincidence, but it's not. In the LEGO book from 2012, LEGO actually confirmed that Josh Thunder is a direct descendant of Johnny Thunder. They even designed him with similar facial features and outfit styling, so it's clearly intentional. But here's the thing, the Dino theme only lasted for 1 year. It came out in 2012 and was gone by 2013, so most people probably forgot Josh Thunder even existed. It was a cool way to keep him relevant, but if we're going to talk about relevance, then I need to talk about Legoland. Since 2008, multiple Legoland parks around the world have had this interactive dark ride called Lost Kingdom Adventure. You're riding through ancient ruins, shooting lasers at targets, and helping the main character fight off bad guys and recover lost treasures. And guess who the main character is? Yup, it's Johnny Thunder. He shows up throughout the whole ride, and the entire story revolves around his adventures. But here's what's really cool. They kept his design exactly the same for this ride, which means kids who visit Legoland get to meet the man in all of his glory. So even though the Adventurers theme ended over 20 years ago, Johnny Thunder has been a part of Legoland for almost 17 years now. But let's jump to 2022, because the Atari 2600 set has one of the most subtle Johnny Thunder references I've ever seen. Obviously, this set is a build of the classic console, but inside there's a minifig scale version of a kid's room from the 1970s. On the wall, there's this stickered poster that looks like an Indiana Jones movie poster, but if you look closely, it's actually Johnny Thunder. Now, here's why this makes so much sense. Indiana Jones debuted in 1981, and Johnny Thunder is basically LEGO's version of Indy. They're both adventurers, they both explore ancient ruins, they both fight bad guys and recover treasures. They're basically the same guy. However, LEGO couldn't actually put Indiana Jones in the set because of licensing issues, but they could use Johnny Thunder as a stand-in reference. And honestly, it's perfect. If you're not paying attention or you don't know your LEGO lore, you might look at it and be confused by the name, so it actually works really well. Another modern set where our goat snuck in is in the Monkey Kid City of Lanterns set from 2022, and it has another reference that's super easy to miss. Just like the Ninjago City docks, there are references to old LEGO themes everywhere, but one that specifically connects to Johnny Thunder is in the LEGO store section of the set. There's a sticker that shows the box art for set 5988, Pharaoh's Forbidden Ruins, which was part of the Adventurers Egypt sub-theme. Now, obviously, this is directly connected to Johnny Thunder's lore, since he was the main character of that entire theme. But what's cool is that this sticker is just one of many references to classic LEGO sets. It's surrounded by other box art stickers, so it's not like Johnny Thunder is the main focus. But for the fans of the Adventurers theme, it's a nice little reminder that LEGO hasn't forgotten about it. Alright, so now I want to talk talk about one of the most interesting references on this entire list, and that's the museum curator in the Natural History Museum set from 2023. This guy is actually Dr. Kilroy, and even though LEGO never officially said that this was true, it's pretty obvious. He's got the round glasses, the facial hair, and of course the red bow tie. And if you know anything about the Adventurers theme, Dr. Kilroy is Johnny Thunder's uncle and partner. He showed up in a bunch of the original Adventurers sets, especially set 7415, the Aero Nomad, and the museum curator looks almost identical to that version of him. But Dr. Kilroy isn't the only Adventurers character who made a comeback in 2023. The Orient Express set has Pippin Reed as one of the passengers. Now again, LEGO never officially confirmed that this is Pippin Reed, but come on, it's so obvious. In the Adventurers theme, she was Johnny Thunder's photojournalist partner. She was always documenting his adventures and taking pictures of all the cool stuff they discovered, so including a pen with her makes perfect sense. And just like with Dr. Kilroy, this is another if you know Easter egg, so it's definitely not for everyone. But now let's talk about 2024, because this is when Johnny Thunder made his official return to LEGO, or should I say his 2019 counterpart did. First up is the Jungle Explorer ATV set, which funnily enough is in a sub-theme named after the Johnny Thunder lookalike. So LEGO really is doing everything but bringing back the Adventurers theme. This is the smallest of the 3 Jungle Explorer sets that came out in 2024, and it comes with a minifigure, an ATV, and a red panda habitat. Obviously, this is the same minifigure as the one from CMF Pack 19. I mean, they have the exact same name. But like I said, this isn't the only set he's in from 2024. He's also in the Jungle Explorer Off-Road Truck set. This is one of the mid-sized sets in the Jungle Explorer wave, and it has the exact same Johnny Thunder minifigure as the ATV set. LEGO kept this little sub-theme going into this year, but none of the other sets have this minifigure. So even though LEGO obviously wants to live out their dreams of bringing back Adventurers, they have to do it in such a small way that they can't even put Johnny Thunder in every set, because most people think it's just for pulling bricks apart, but it can do way more than that. Obviously, its main function is to separate bricks, but did you know you can use it to put stickers on straight? If you put the sticker on the tip of the handle and slowly apply it, it goes on straighter than it ever would if you used your fingers. So the next time you have to put a sticker on, just use the brick separator. If you thought that was cool though, let me show you something about minifigures that's gonna blow your mind. You know how minifigure hands have that little wrist on them so they can go inside the arm? Well, that wrist is the exact same size as the hip socket on a minifigure's legs. So you can literally connect a minifigure's hand directly into another minifigure's hip, and it makes a surprisingly strong connection. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would I ever need to do this? And honestly, I don't know. But the fact that it works is pretty cool. People use this technique to make custom poses, like making weird minifigure towers where they're all connected hand to hip. But it's one of those hidden connections that LEGO definitely designed on purpose, but never really told anyone about. Now, if you've ever built a Technic set, you've probably noticed how precise everything is. Like the holes always line up perfectly, the gears always mesh together, and nothing ever feels off by even a millimeter. Well, there's actually a reason for that, and it's because of something called modules. One LEGO module is the distance from the center of one stud to the center of the next stud, and it's exactly 8 millimeters. Every single Technic piece is designed using this measurement, which is why everything fits together so perfectly. Once you know about this, you start to realize just how much thought LEGO puts into making sure every single piece works with every other piece, even ones that came out 20 years apart. All of these techniques are sick, but now let's talk about hidden features in actual LEGO sets, starting with one of the coolest modular buildings ever made, the Detective's Office. This set has a secret storage compartment hidden behind a picture frame on the wall, and you can actually open it up and store stuff inside of it. This is one of those features that's super easy to miss if you're not paying attention while you're building, but once you know it's there, it makes the set so much better. But the Detective's Office isn't the only modular building with a hidden feature. The Brick Bank has one of the funniest play features LEGO's ever made, and it has to do with money laundering. The set has a laundromat on the first floor that's connected to a vault. There are 4 machines in total, but one of them is red while the other 3 are blue. That red piece is there to let people know that that machine is out of order, but that's actually a lie. Whoever owns this place is using that machine to launder money into the safe. When you put a piece into that machine, it comes out on the other side and goes right into the vault. So not only is this a perfect representation of money laundering, but it's a play on words too, because to launder money, you have to make sure it's clean first. Get it? Clean, washing machine. Anyways, clearly LEGO goes pretty hard for their modular building sets. So let's look at another one, the Natural History Museum. In this set, there's a minifigure of a window washer hanging off the side of the building, and that minifigure is actually based on the guy who designed the set. Chris McVie. He literally put himself into the set as a minifigure, which is such a cool way to sign your work. Most people would never notice this unless someone told them, but now that you know about it, it's a cool fact you can tell your friends. This isn't even the only set Chris has put himself into though, because he's also in the police station set from the Modular Buildings theme. In the LEGO world, the police station has a donut thief. We can see who it is from a picture on LEGO's website, and if we look at this picture of Chris from the instructions, there's no doubt about it. It's definitely him. Cool features like these aren't just in modern LEGO sets though. LEGO's been hiding secret features in their builds for decades. Nothing quite like a minifigure cameo, but they're still there. A lot of the classic sets from the 80s and 90s have hidden trap doors built into them. The fire-breathing fortress has one that drops enemies into a dungeon with a dragon inside of it. Features like this were way ahead of their time, and they're a big reason why people still love these old castle sets. So of course, LEGO had to keep it going in the Lion Knights castle set from 2022. This set has a million different details I could talk about, but I just want to focus on one. The set is made up of two giant builds put together, and when you take them apart, you can find a secret room at the bottom of it. This is already pretty sick, but this secret room can actually be accessed from a few different points. The first one is a food stand that's secretly a trap door. Once you see it move, you notice the hinges on the ground, but if you didn't know about it, it would actually blend in really well. The second access point is a cave that leads to water at the bridge of the castle. When the two giant builds are connected, the cave and the room are right next to each other, so it's a perfect pathway. If you're making your own build though, and want to add some cool features, these next few techniques will help you out a lot. If you want to make a sliding door or a secret drawer, the key is using tiles. Since they don't have any studs on top, they have no clutch power, which means they can slide really smoothly against other pieces. So if you build a drawer or a door using tiles, it'll open and close way easier than if you used regular bricks. There's actually a perfect example of this in the LEGO Minecraft Skeleton Dungeon set. The only reason the skeleton spawner in the corner is so smooth is because there are only tiles around it. If they used plates instead, it probably wouldn't even work. Another technique that's super useful is using hinged plates to create opening walls. If you've ever seen a modular building that opens up to show the interior, like the one in the Lion Knights castle, odds are it's using hinged plates. You can attach them to the side of a build, and then the entire wall will swing open like a door. This is one of those techniques that seems complicated at first, but once you try it, you'll realize it's actually really simple, and it makes your build so much more functional. But what if you want to make something posable, like a dragon or a robot? Well, the secret is using Technic ball joints. These pieces can create movable arms, legs, and pretty much any other articulated feature you can think of. The ball joints give you way more freedom than regular hinges, and they're strong enough to hold their position even when you're moving the build around. This is one of those techniques that separates beginner MOC builders from advanced ones, so if you're trying to level up your building skills, definitely start experimenting with ball joints. Okay, this next technique might be a little illegal, but it's genuinely so underrated. LEGO makes this stuff called FlexTube, and you can do some pretty crazy stuff with it. A guy named Will F. posted an article on Brick Nerd in 2021 showing just how capable this tube really is, and it's really surprising. Will was making a trolley, and on the bottom, he put minifigure hands inside FlexTube to stretch them across the width of the trolley. This is some real brainiac stuff, but there's still more. Will came up with a way to make a double-sided plate piece using FlexTube, and this is where the possibly illegal stuff comes in. He took an X-Acto knife and cut the FlexTube to some very specific measurements. Then he put it in the backside of a plate piece and connected another plate to it. Now, is this illegal? We don't really know, but one thing's for sure, it's sick. Alright, let's get back to hidden features in actual sets, because I know we all love those. The Christmas Penguin set has a secret snowflake hidden in the base of the build that you'd never even know was there unless you built the set yourself. It doesn't serve any purpose, it's just there to look cool, and honestly, that's what makes it so special. LEGO could have just made the base solid, but instead, they added this little detail that most people will never see. It's stuff like this that makes you realize just how much LEGO cares about their designs. Another set with a hidden feature is Regana's Magic Shadow Castle from the Elves theme. The front of the set has these giant doors with a walkway leading up to it, and if you put a minifigure on the walkway and just move it forward, it slides forward and the doors open up with it. But if you want a set that's all about secret compartments, the Dot secret holder was basically made for that. The cat-shaped holder has two secret compartments hidden in the body, so you can store jewelry, candy, or whatever else you want to keep safe. The best part is that the compartments are actually pretty hard to find if you don't know where to look, so it works as a legit hiding spot. This next secret compartment isn't as useful for stuff in real life, but if you want to hide some golden Lego coins, it's perfect for that. It's in the King Leo's Castle set from the year 2000, and along with booby traps, chest catapults, and gate droppers, there's a secret stash hidden under the king's throne. All you have to do is pull it back, and it'll flip up to reveal a very well-hidden piggy bank. It's only right that the king has a hiding spot for all his valuables, and what better place to hide it than somewhere only the king can go? LEGO really likes using this trap door feature with chairs, because it's also in the LEGO Harry Potter Hogwarts Castle set from 2001. If you go over to Professor Dumbledore's chair, you can flip it up and find a secret storage compartment underneath it, just like the one from King Leo's castle. I'm sure Dumbledore has a bunch of stuff he wants to keep secret, so this is perfect for him. Another Harry Potter set with a cool feature like this is the Hogwarts Express from 2023, and it has a really tasteful play feature hiding on the boarding platform. To get to platform 9 3/4, you have to run through a wall that isn't really a wall. It's one of the most well-known things in Harry Potter, and it's actually recreated in this set. Obviously, LEGO can't make a fake wall, so instead they made one that flips up when you push on it. Clearly, LEGO really likes using this flip technique, because there's another one in the Treasure Island set from LEGO Pirates. This one is literally staring you right in the face, but it's still a little hard to put together. If you push down on the palm tree on the right, the skull turns into a giant gate and flips upward. Once you know it's there, it's really obvious, but if you don't know about it, it's not the easiest thing to spot. Okay, wow, that was a lot of hidden stuff in sets. So now, let me show you some pieces you can use as tools while you build. There's a piece called the spanner wrench that only comes in certain sets, and it can actually be used as a tile remover. So it's basically a mini brick separator that your minifigures can hold. I don't know if LEGO designed it like this on purpose, but it works surprisingly well. If you want something more precise though, the dot sets come with 3 different tile removing tools, including 2 that are shaped like keys. These tools are designed for tile surgery, which means you can remove individual tiles without messing with any of the ones around them. If you've ever tried to fix one tile in a sea of tiles, you know how frustrating it can be to remove just one without messing up the rest. So these tools are genuinely game-changing. This last technique technically doesn't use Lego pieces, but it works perfectly with Lego. A lot of MOC builders use regular rubber bands inside their builds to make spring-loaded trap doors and other mechanisms. The rubber bands create tension, so when you release the mechanism, it snaps back into place automatically. This is one of those techniques that feels like cheating, but Lego themselves have actually used it before. In the Lego Star Wars X-Wing set from 2012, there's a knob on the back that controls the tension of 2 different rubber bands. It's used to change the X-Wing from regular mode to fighting mode, so it really is a good technique. And on paper, it sounds kind of fun, but when you actually look at it, this thing is an absolute joke. Jay from Jay's Brick Vlog reviewed it and basically just called it a collectible, not actual footwear. And after you find out the details, it's pretty hard to disagree. For starters, each one weighs around 3 pounds. On top of that, they're made from hard foam, not the soft, squishy feeling people are used to from Crocs. And they cost $150. But the craziest part is they sold out almost immediately. The set came with a little minifigure wearing tiny versions of them, which just makes it feel like even more of a display piece. LEGO knew exactly what they were doing here, and everybody fell for it anyway. But at least this was on purpose, because the Happy Meal toys were weird by accident. In 1999, Happy Meal toys were still actual Lego bricks, but in 2001, they switched to Bionicle sets, which weren't traditional bricks, but they were at least part of a real Lego theme. But then 2002 happened, and LEGO used their McDonald's collab to promote Galador. They were chunky 3 or 4 piece action figure bodies with no regular Lego compatibility whatsoever. Brickset straight up called them appalling and said they had no resemblance to regular Lego parts. So what you had was a Happy Meal promotion for a theme nobody liked, using toys that didn't even feel like Lego during a time where the company was already going bankrupt. Honestly, I'm surprised this didn't completely kill them. This wasn't their first collab with McDonald's either, and there's a similar story with Nike. LEGO and Nike announced a collab in 2024, and everybody acted like it was brand new, but it wasn't. 22 years earlier, LEGO and Nike launched Bionicle by Nike. These were kids' shoes inspired by the Toa Nuva era, and the gimmick was genuinely wild. The shoe came with a removable Tahu Nuva mask on the toe box, and you could buy more masks separately to swap in if you wanted to. So it was a wearable version of Bionicle's mask collecting. They retailed for $50, and the extra mask packs were $9.95, so I can kind of see why it didn't do very well. They were just a little too expensive. But now we're going way back, because as weird as the shoe collabs are, LEGO's collab history goes back a lot further than most people realize. In 1967, during the Samsonite era, LEGO released promotional sets with Kraft Velveeta, like the cheese. You couldn't buy these in a store. They were mail-away sets, which means you had to mail in a certain amount of stuff to get them. Kind of like box tops on cereal, if you guys remember those. Now, the sets themselves were nothing crazy, but they came in boxes with absolutely nothing on them. We've seen plain boxes somewhat recently, but for it to happen this long ago is pretty crazy, especially since it was with a food company. And speaking of food collabs, in 2007, LEGO did something way different. They made the food itself a LEGO product. Kellogg's released Lego Eggo waffles that looked like Lego. The box told kids to toast, break, and build. The idea was that you could snap the waffle apart into small sections and build with them. Obviously, they were still waffles, so the building system was more of a joke than anything else. But that's what makes it so good. Lego My Eggo became Lego My Eggo, but for some reason, it didn't last. And people have been copying it ever since. But if cheese and waffles weren't enough, in 1985, LEGO somehow ended up connected to Crest, toothpaste, and Pepsi at the same time. Set 1562 was a basic set that promoted both brands for some reason. Toothpaste and soda have nothing to do with each other and nothing to do with LEGO, but that was kind of how promotional toy marketing worked in the 80s. Brands needed exciting toys to sell regular stuff, and a handful of bricks felt like a real toy no matter how small the set was. But a promotional set that makes a little more sense is the Duracell Bad Guy from 2006. Set 7217 was a 16-piece Bionicle set that came with Duracell AA batteries. Brick Economy lists two variants, one version with a 12-pack and another with an 8-pack. So the logic was actually pretty sound. Bionicle's audience was kids who had battery-powered toys, and Duracell's audience was everyone who was buying batteries for those toys. So they just combined it. Buy batteries, get a tiny Bionicle villain. It makes sense. It's just kind of strange when you look at it now. This next one was a Japan exclusive, and it's one of the weirdest ones in this video. Set 1237 is a Technic build of Asimo, Honda's famous humanoid robot. So already you've got Lego Technic, a real car company, a humanoid robot, and it's only available in Japan. But it gets even better, because Brickset published an article about a rare white Technic pin found inside the set that might be one of the rarest Technic pieces ever produced. So the set is strange on two completely different levels. The whole concept is a Honda exclusive Lego robot, and it has one of the rarest Technic pieces ever made. This thing is an absolute curveball, but Honda wasn't even close to the first car brand Lego worked with. That was Volkswagen in 1958. Set 307-2 was a Lego showroom that came with Volkswagen branded toy cars, and BrickNerd identifies it as one of the earliest collab sets Lego ever made. Think about how early that is. It was literally before the modern day brick even existed. Early Lego was basically a model town system where real world vehicles and buildings made total sense, so Volkswagen fit right in. It's technically the ancestor of every Speed Champion set, Creator Expert set, and licensed vehicle Lego's made since. It just happened in 1958 in a way almost nobody talks about. And Volkswagen wasn't even the only collab that was this early. Most fans know about Lego's partnership with Shell, but Esso came first. Brickner traces some of LEGO's earliest sets with them back to the 1950s, including Esso filling stations as part of the old LEGO Town Plan sets. Shell eventually showed up in 1966 and stayed all the way until 2014. But Esso was already there in the 50s, and even Exxon had its own American partnership from 1979 to 1984. The LEGO Exxon gas station is now a genuinely valuable vintage set. So when people were pissed about the Shell partnership, what they didn't realize is that LEGO's always been in business with oil companies. But now I want to talk about a side of LEGO that most people don't even know exists: airline sets. In 1989, Emirates Airlines got a LEGO set. It was a small jet with Emirates branding in the town theme, and obviously a collab with the United Arab Emirates. The craziest part though was they sold these on the airplane, so a kid could get one and build the plane they're flying in. But here's where it gets really interesting. Emirates wasn't alone. LEGO made sets of planes for Aeroflot, ANA, Austrian Air, Iberia, JAL, and a bunch of others, and they each came with their own sticker sheets. This trend died out a long time ago, but for a while, LEGO had an entire sub-theme dedicated to real-life airlines. But if this was unexpected, government sets are even weirder. In the 1980s, LEGO partnered with Air Canada and Canada Post. These are not consumer brands, they're part of the Canadian government. The sets are pretty hard to track down, but if you know where to look, you'll see that they made a good amount of them. A Canadian kid in the late 80s could easily add these to their LEGO town and they would fit right in. This is something LEGO City has literally never had. Sets based on stuff from real life that makes sense for a city. But now we need to talk about ferries, because this history is its own entire rabbit hole. Set 1054 is exactly what it looks like. A LEGO model of a Stena Line ferry, available through the actual ferry company. And the concept is kind of genius when you think about it. You're on the ferry, you go to the gift shop, and you buy a LEGO set of the ferry you're currently on. It turns the whole trip into something collectible. These sets were obviously never going to be huge worldwide sellers, since the target audience was specifically people that were actually on the boat. But Stena Line is just the beginning, because Color Line, a Norwegian ferry company, got enough sets to feel like an unofficial theme. Brickopedia lists multiple of them: the Color Line ferry, the container truck, and others like 2186, 2187, and 2188. Brick Economy tells us that the main ferry dropped in 1993, and it was based on a real ship called the Christian IV. This set had 241 pieces, and even though that's not that many, it made a genuinely good-looking boat. Colorline got a good amount of sets, but then there's the Finnjet. Finnjet was a very specific ferry because it only ran between Finland and Germany, and the company that made it is way too foreign for me to pronounce. They only ever got this one set, but it's because it's based on a very famous ferry called the GTS Finnjet. When it was still running, it was the fastest, longest, and biggest car ferry in the world, and the only one powered by gas turbines. So for the people that paid attention to ferries, this thing was genuinely groundbreaking. And since Denmark is literally in between the two countries it traveled to, it makes sense why LEGO made a set about it back in the day. But this next one is hilariously weird. In 1966, LEGO made a promotional set for Velux, a company that makes windows and skylights. Set 1854 is a 144-piece LEGO house with roof windows. That's it. A window company wanted to advertise their product, so LEGO made a house that shows it off and sold it. It's a lot like the Pepsi and Crest collab I talked about earlier, but this one actually makes sense. And yet they only ever got one set, while Danone, on the other hand, somehow ended up with an entire collection. And by the way, Danone is a yogurt company. Brickopedia lists a bunch of different sets as LEGO and Danone collabs, and I'm sure you noticed it too. They all kind of suck. The craziest part though is they were making these sets for years, from 1980 all the way up to 1998. So this wasn't one random giveaway with yogurt. This was 18 years of sets handed out through European dairy promotions. I think I'm really starting to understand why LEGO almost went bankrupt before Bionicle, especially because Dannon isn't the only dairy company LEGO's collabed with. Tine is a Norwegian dairy brand that started in 1928, and for some reason, LEGO collabed with them in 1999 and made a milk truck for the town theme. Just like a lot of these sets, this one was also 100% free, and considering it had 95 pieces and a minifigure, they definitely lost some money. Although they did cut corners pretty hard. The minifig's torso isn't even printed, it's a sticker. So that tells you how little money they really had back then. But then there's Arla. I guess one Scandinavian milk truck wasn't enough. There's also the Arla milk delivery truck and dairy tanker sets, which were collabs with MD Foods and Arla. With all of these dairy brands, it's starting to feel like LEGO had an entire unofficial dairy universe. All of these sets were just called promotional. They weren't even labeled as actual collabs, like what happens with licensed themes. They were all basically giant ads for these companies. But the craziest food collab in this entire video isn't any of the small ones. It's the Chocomel Chocolate Factory. The Chocolate Factory set was a 236-piece LEGO town set that was basically a little piece of a town all in one. It had street, sidewalk, minifigures, and of course, the Chocolate Factory. This one came out back in 1978, so it actually might have done pretty well since minifigures had just come out. But this is quite literally the only Chocomel set LEGO ever made, and it's probably because you couldn't just buy it. You had to get this set by collecting 3 Chocomel seals and then showing them to stores that sold the set. But you know what all of this is a recipe for? Expensive LEGO, and this set is definitely one of them. It was only $20 when it came out, and now it's worth almost $2,500. Barely any of them even exist in the aftermarket. So is this one really a failure? Honestly, I don't even know. The Steven Spielberg Movie Maker set from LEGO Studios wasn't just a regular movie-themed set. It came with an actual USB webcam, stop-motion editing software, a director's chair, and a clapperboard. You filmed your LEGO movies, added special effects, and emailed them to your friends in 2000. The set retailed at $180, and Steven Spielberg himself was involved enough that he donated his royalties from it to charity. This was super innovative for the time, but somehow the theme just quietly disappeared. But if you think that's forgotten, try asking someone about Throwbots. It was also known as Slizer in Europe, and it was a theme from 1999 where every single figure had spring-loaded arms that threw collectible discs. They weren't even sold in regular boxes either. They came in plastic canisters like Bionicle. The disc-throwing mechanism didn't actually work that well, which probably explains why it turned into Bionicle 2 years later. But something most people don't realize changed is the skeleton minifigure, unless you're a true LEGO fan. The original one from 1995 had ball and socket shoulder joints, which meant the arms could rotate in any direction. They were known as floppy arms, and they were completely posable, which is honestly way cooler than the modern day arms. In 2014, LEGO retired this version and redesigned it to have the fixed bent arm version every other minifigure has. So you physically can't get the same poses anymore. But did you know LEGO was experimenting with tech all the way back in 2002? Spybotics was a Mindstorm sub-theme that actually never made it out of that year. LEGO only made 4 sets for the theme, and they were all color-coded, programmable robots that had an IR trans receiver, a remote, and a CD-ROM. The software had 10 built-in missions for builders to complete, and you could download more from the official website. Each set was $60 retail, but after the theme retired, not only did the website cease to exist, but 23 years later, the sets are worth almost $650 combined. But as wild as that is, it's nothing compared to what LEGO was doing with Technic in the mid-90s. From 1996 to 1997, there were Technic sets that had real fiber optic cables, which I've talked about before. But what I didn't mention was the spinning LED brick that lit those cables. The problem was that sourcing those fiber optic components cost LEGO more than the entire retail price of the sets. And since they were taking a loss and didn't want to raise prices, they just got rid of the theme altogether. But this wasn't a one-time mistake. The exact same problem happened with the Technic Micro Motor. This thing was only 4 studs big, and it powered things like satellite deployment arms and moving space shuttle components. And just like the fiber optics, LEGO was making it at a price that was higher than the full price of the sets it shipped in. LEGO was bleeding money on both of these pieces, and nobody even knew about it until Mark Stafford told everyone on Reddit. But moving on from financial disasters, there's a space theme from 2001 that old LEGO fans love, but always forget the details of, and that's Life on Mars. The thing people always forget is that it was the only space sub-theme in LEGO history where nobody was trying to shoot anyone. The humans showed up on Mars, the Martians met them, and everyone just coexisted. No combat, no good guys versus bad guys, nothing. On top of that, life on Mars is the reason sand colors even exist. Colors like sand red, sand green, and sand purple all come from this theme. So technically, a piece of it is still alive today, even though it never made it past a year. And life on Mars wasn't the only space sub-theme that did something unique for a short time. Every ship in the Insectoids theme from 1998 was designed to look like an insect, and it wasn't for no reason. According to the lore, the ships themselves were called insectoids, and they were made by aliens called Zotaxians so they could survive underground. Some of the smaller ones don't look that good, but bigger ones look super sick, like the Space Spider, the Sonic Stinger, and the Cosmic Creeper. Some of the sets even had lights and sounds, like the Arachnoid Starbase. However, none of this saved the theme from being sucked into the void of forgotten LEGO. But space wasn't the only place LEGO made one-time waves that nobody talks about. In 2005, LEGO released a Vikings theme. Actual Nordic warriors with longships, sea serpents, and giant stone fortresses. It wasn't even just a European release. It went worldwide after it made enough money. The sets had massive creature models like sea serpents and dragons at a scale LEGO hadn't really figured out yet, which is probably why it retired so fast. It got 7 sets and 27 minifigs in the year it was around, which isn't that bad. But Vikings isn't even the most forgotten LEGO theme. That title probably goes to Model Team, which ran from 1986 to 1999. Now, because of how long it was around, you might think this theme is pretty well remembered, but because of all of the other car themes that have come out, it gets completely overshadowed. The theme's concept was medium-sized, highly detailed LEGO cars with working steering and realistic details built at around 1:15 scale. And the thing is, there were 0 minifigures. The sets just existed to be realistic car models for adults, and it was over a decade before Creator Expert was even a thing. Model Team is literally the direct ancestor of everything AFOL, and most fans today don't even know it existed. But if you want a theme that was ahead of its time in a completely different way, Homemaker ran from 1971 to 1982, and honestly didn't even feel like LEGO in the beginning. For the first 3 years, the sets were just furniture. Kitchens, living rooms, nurseries, all buildable, fully tiled, and with no figures at all. The 1973 catalog literally told you to use your own dolls. Then in 1974, LEGO finally added what they called maxi figures. These big figures with movable arms, interchangeable hair, and different faceplates. After this, Homemaker got like 60 more sets, but no one really talks about it unless they're covering the history of minifigures. Which actually brings up something worth pointing out about them. For the first 22 years they existed, the back of every single minifigure torso was completely blank. The first minifigures with back-printed torsos didn't show up until mid-2000 in the sports football sets. And the Steven Spielberg set I talked about earlier got them too. But before 2000, if you turned any minifigure around, there was nothing there. But there's also a whole forgotten history of Lego capes. The first one showed up in 1984 as a tiny plastic piece that attached at the neck. And from the front, you couldn't even tell it was there because it was too small to see. The only time this cape piece was ever worn forwards was in set 6040, the blacksmith shop. But other than that, you'd never know it was there from the front. But that all changed in 1993 because the Dragon Master from the Dragon Knight's Castle sub-theme got the first ever fabric cape, and it was a cloth piece with a printed green dragon on it. This was also the first non-plastic element in a regular system Lego set, and once it was out there, it spread. The same material got used for sails, flags, and more capes across multiple themes. It was a genuine turning point in how Lego made accessories. But even after all that, Lego thought they still hadn't quite nailed it, because now there are technically 3 different cape materials, and none of them are better than that original cloth. The plastic cape before it was too unrealistic, the lighter papery version that replaced the cloth creases easily and didn't flow right, and the rubber cape introduced in 2021 can't be printed on and bunches at the neck. 3 different materials across 40 years, and the one that actually worked the best is the hardest one to find. This thing is pretty buried, and Lego's also done a pretty good job of burying entire themes that most fans pretend never existed. From 2003 to 2006, they made over 90 sets of clipped-together jewelry, hair clips, picture frames, and pencil cases under the Clickets theme. They made 150 new molds and 49 colors, and 6 of these colors have never been in any other theme besides Clickets. The pieces were technically compatible with Lego, they just couldn't really build anything. The funny ending to this story is that Lego basically revived the whole concept in 2020 as dots, and people absolutely loved it. So maybe Clickets was just 17 years too early. But there's a certain Technic piece with a much sadder story, the pneumatic air tank from 1997. The whole point of it was to act like a battery for the compressed air system. You'd pump it full by hand and then run your pneumatics off the stored pressure without having to keep pumping. Lego made 5 different versions between 1997 and 1998, and even though one of them made it all the way to 2016, it was only ever in 12 sets. The others were only in 1 to 3 sets, and because of how good this piece was, Technic fans literally beg Lego to bring it back all the time. Lego was super innovative in the late 90s and early 2000s, and it's super obvious with a piece like this air tank, but it's also obvious in the sports theme. In the early 2000s, Lego was trying to do something they'd never done before: make functional sports sets so kids could play actual games with them. The NBA line from 2003 to 2004 actually licensed real NBA players. Kobe, Shaq, Allen Iverson, and a bunch of others all got real minifigures. But the wild part is what it took just to make them hold a basketball. Brickopedia confirms that the arm mold alone needed a team of 4 designers and 6 engineers, and took an entire year to develop. The figures also had spring-loaded legs and could reverse slam dunk. An entire year for an arm mold is absolutely insane. But basketball wasn't even the most elaborate play feature in the sports theme. The soccer sub-theme from 2000 to 2004 had wind-up motor mechanisms that physically launched a minifigure's leg to kick a tiny ball. Not a stud shooter, not a flick fire, an actual spring-loaded kick. The Championship Challenge set from 2000 is the best example of it, and the minifigures had completely unique leg and body molds just so they could do this one play feature. What most people also don't remember is just how big the marketing was around this sub-theme. In 2002, to tie into the World Cup, co-hosted by Japan and South Korea, Lego soccer sets were sold as Coca-Cola promotional packs in Japan. At the exact same time, Kabaya, a Japanese candy brand, was bundling small Lego soccer polybags with candy in them. To this day, this is one of LEGO's biggest and most elaborate collabs ever, and you never see people talking about it. But then there was the hockey sub-theme, which was somehow the most forgotten of all three. LEGO Hockey in 2003 had real NHL branding, and the Canadian national team was there too. But just like basketball and soccer, the play feature is what made it stand out. There was a shooting mechanic where you could cock the minifigure stick back and release it to shoot a puck across the ice. The theme only ran for a year with both the basketball and soccer sub-themes, but then out of nowhere, the entire operation just stopped. And since 2007, LEGO hasn't made another play feature this cool. But while I'm talking about nostalgic play features, LEGO used to do something with castle sets that was completely different from anything they do today. Before flick-fire missiles, castle and western sets had walls that were designed to break apart when you hit them. At first, people thought this was an accident, but they were deliberately less supportive at certain points, so the wall would break. The Western Sheriff's Lockup from 1996 even had a spring-loaded cell wall that was triggered by a dynamite tile. And right alongside that is something pirate fans already know. The original Black Seas Barracuda from 1989 had spring-loaded cannons. You loaded ammo into the barrel, pressed down, and it fired across the entire room. Reviewers still call them the best part of the set, but unfortunately, LEGO had to get rid of them in the US, and the international version kept them. But since then, every pirate ship slowly got decorative cannons, then stud shooters, and now nothing that actually fires a cannonball. So you can only find that specific mechanism in vintage pirate sets. Before 2006, castle sets also had real lever action catapults. You pulled the arm back, loaded it up, and fired away. The flick-fire missile came out in 2006, and it spread through every action theme by about 2008, replacing literally every single one of those mechanics with flick-fire instead. The community has been complaining about flick-fires basically ever since, and honestly, I can't blame them. Nothing about a flick-fire feels as satisfying as those OG catapults and cannons. But this last thing is so simple that it doesn't even make sense that it's gone. The string winch on classic Town and Technic crane sets. These things were all over the place back in the day, and people loved how interactive they are. You turned a hand crank and a hook on a real string would go up or down really smoothly. It's not complicated at all, but the tactile feel of it is something modern LEGO cranes completely lost. Now they simulate it with Technic gears moving a hook up a fixed arm with no string tension whatsoever. You can still find loads of these old winches on Bricklink, but when's the last time you've seen them in an actual set? It's probably been a really long time, but how many of these LEGO things did you forget about? Be sure to let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe.